Rain hammered the streets of Seoul like bullets trying to erase her from existence. 29-year-old Nayela Akachi Vale stood barefoot outside a luxury penthouse tower in Gangnam, clutching a torn garbage bag filled with old sweaters while her ex-husband's mistress threw jewelry onto the wet pavement below. "Take your trash and disappear." Inside one velvet box was a strange matte black card engraved with a silver tiger wrapped around a lotus flower. No bank logo, just one name, Amara Vale, her grandmother. 3 minutes after using it at a convenience store, black SUVs flooded the street. Then he entered, tall, immaculate, dangerous. "You activated the Lotus Seal," he said in a low British accented voice. "Do you have any idea what you've just awakened?" What? If you want to see how this story unfolds, stay with me until the very end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels across the world. The rain wasn't supposed to feel this cold. Nayela had always imagined heartbreak would come wrapped in something softer, a gradual fading, a kind conversation over coffee, maybe even mutual tears and a hug goodbye. Not this. Not standing barefoot on wet concrete outside the building where she'd lived for 3 years, watching a woman she'd never met before toss her belongings from a marble balcony like garbage. The sweaters hit the ground first, then the cheap jewelry box, then a trash bag that split open on impact, spilling old books and photographs across the sidewalk. Above, the woman laughed. She wore Nayela's silk robe, the cream one with the embroidered collar that Jae-hyun had bought in Paris. "Your husband said you can keep the trash," the woman called down in Korean, her voice sharp and mocking. "Everything else stays here." Nayela didn't respond. Her throat felt like it had been filled with broken glass. 3 hours earlier, she'd been lying in a hospital bed staring at fluorescent lights, while a doctor explained in gentle tones that there was no heartbeat anymore. The baby was gone. Jae-hyun had sat beside her holding her hand, his face carefully blank. "We'll try again," he'd said. She'd believed him. Then his phone rang. He stepped into the hallway. When he came back, his expression had changed, colder, more distant. "My mother wants to see you," he'd said. Nayela had thought it was about the miscarriage, maybe condolences, maybe support. Instead, she'd walked into the penthouse and found her mother-in-law standing in the living room with 2 lawyers and a mistress she didn't bother hiding. "You're no longer useful to this family," Mrs. Seo had said in perfect English, her voice devoid of warmth. "The marriage contract is void. You have 1 hour to collect your personal items and leave." Nayela had stood there in shock, still wearing the hospital bracelet around her wrist. "Jae-hyun?" she'd whispered, turning toward her husband. He wouldn't meet her eyes. "This was always temporary," he'd said quietly. "You knew that." She hadn't known that. She'd thought he loved her. That was 2 hours ago. Now she knelt on the wet pavement, gathering soaked photographs with trembling fingers. Rain plastered her hair against her face. Her hospital gown clung to her skin beneath the thin jacket she'd grabbed on her way out. Passers-by stared, but didn't stop. Seoul had no patience for broken women. Her phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. Account frozen. "Outstanding debts transferred to your name. Legal proceedings begin Monday." Nayela's stomach dropped. She opened her banking app with shaking hands. Account balance, $2.57. 3 years of marriage. 3 years of being told not to work because the Seo family takes care of its own. 3 years of smiling at charity galas and learning to bow correctly and pretending she didn't hear the whispers about the black woman who somehow tricked their golden son into marriage. And now she had $2.57. She wanted to scream. Instead, she gathered the torn garbage bag and started walking. The convenience store appeared 2 blocks later, glowing beneath flickering neon lights like a small island of warmth in the storm. Nayela pushed through the glass doors, dripping rainwater onto the tile floor. The clerk looked up briefly, then went back to his phone. She stood in the refrigerated section staring at rows of bottled water, trying to calculate whether she could afford one. That's when she noticed the velvet jewelry box still clutched in her other hand. She'd forgotten she was holding it. Nayela sat down on the floor right there between the refrigerators and the instant noodle shelves. She didn't care anymore. Let them stare. Let them call security. Let the whole world watch her fall apart. She opened the box. Inside were cheap earrings she recognized from years ago. An amber necklace her mother had given her before she died. And beneath them, something that didn't belong. A matte black card. No bank logo. No magnetic strip, no numbers. Just a silver engraving, a tiger wrapped around a lotus flower, and one name etched in elegant script. Amara Vale, her grandmother. Nyela's breath caught. She hadn't seen her grandmother in over 15 years. Not since she was 14 and Amara had disappeared from their lives without explanation. Her mother never talked about it, never explained why the woman who'd raised her vanished overnight and never came back. All Nyela remembered was sitting at her grandmother's kitchen table in London, watching Amara pack a single suitcase while men in dark suits waited outside. "Remember whose blood lives inside you," Amara had said, kissing her forehead. "When the world corners you, come find me." Then she was gone. And now this card. Beneath it, folded carefully, was a handwritten note on cream paper. "When the world corners you, remember whose blood lives inside you." Nyela's hands trembled as she read it again. The same words. She turned the card over. On the back, embossed in tiny letters, "Activate only when necessary." She had $2.57 to her name. No home, no family, no plan. If this wasn't necessary, nothing was. Nyela stood up, grabbed a bottle of water from the refrigerator, and walked to the counter. The clerk scanned it without looking up. 3001, he said. Nyela placed the black card on the counter. The clerk finally looked at her, then at the card. His expression shifted instantly from boredom to something closer to fear. "Where did you get this?" he asked in Korean. "Does it work or not?" Nyela responded in English, too tired to code switch. He picked up the card like it might explode, ran it through the reader, a long pause, then a beep. Approved. The clerk's face went pale. He handed the card back like it burned his fingers. "Have a good night," he whispered. Nyela took the water and the card and walked back out into the rain. Her phone exploded 30 seconds later. Blocked call. Blocked call. Blocked call. 7 calls in 10 seconds. Then a text from another unknown number. "Stay exactly where you are." Nyela's heart hammered against her ribs. She spun around, scanning the street. That's when she saw them. Black SUVs. 3 of them. Sliding through the rain like sharks cutting through dark water. They stopped in a perfect semicircle around the convenience store, blocking every exit. Doors opened. Men stepped out. Not cops. Not security. Something worse. They wore dark suits and moved with military precision. No weapons visible, but Nyela could feel the threat radiating off them like heat. She backed toward the store entrance, but the clerk had already locked the door from inside. He stood behind the glass, shaking his head frantically. The men didn't approach her. They simply waited. Then the 4th vehicle arrived. A Genesis G5 80 in midnight black, rain beating off its armored exterior like liquid mercury. It stopped directly in front of Nyela. The back door opened, and he stepped out. Tall, immaculate, dangerous. He wore a charcoal cashmere overcoat that probably cost more than Nyela's entire wardrobe. Rain dripped from his dark hair, but he didn't seem to notice. His face was sharp and aristocratic, the kind of bone structure that belonged on magazine covers or ancient portraits. But it was his eyes that made Nyela's breath stop. Cold, calculating, utterly devoid of mercy. He looked at her the way a scientist might examine an interesting specimen. Then he spoke, and his voice was low and British accented and completely unexpected. "You activated the Lotus Seal," he said. "Do you have any idea what you've just awakened?" Nyela's voice came out smaller than she intended. "Who are you?" The man tilted his head slightly. "My name is Ryu Taejin," he said. "And as of 3 minutes ago, every criminal organization in Korea knows exactly where you are." Nyela's pulse spiked. "I don't understand." "That card you just used," Taejin continued, stepping closer, "it's been dormant for 26 years. The moment you activated it, you sent a signal across every intelligence network in East Asia. Right now, there are people mobilizing to either protect you or kill you, possibly both." He was close enough now that Nyela could see the rainwater caught in his eyelashes. "You're Amara Vale's granddaughter," he said quietly, "which means you've just inherited the most dangerous legacy in Seoul's history." Nyela shook her head. "My grandmother was a student. She taught literature at—" "Your grandmother," Taejin interrupted, "ruled Seoul's criminal underworld for 15 years. She built an empire that made billionaires kneel and politicians beg. She was called the Black Lotus Queen, and when she vanished, she left behind a fortune that entire syndicates have spent decades trying to find." He gestured toward the card in her hand. "That's the key to everything she left behind. And now you've just announced to the entire underworld that her heir has returned. Nayella's legs felt weak. This couldn't be real. Her grandmother had been kind, gentle. She'd made tea and told stories and braided Nayella's hair. She hadn't been a crime lord. "You're lying," Nayella whispered. Taejin's expression didn't change. In approximately 90 seconds, vehicles from the Ivory Serpent's network will arrive at this location. They will attempt to take you. My men will stop them, but the resulting violence will be considerable. So I'm going to ask you once. He extended his hand. Do you want to survive tonight? Nayella looked at his hand, then at the SUVs surrounding her, then at the dark Seoul streets stretching away in every direction. She thought about Jae-hyun's face when he'd refused to meet her eyes. She thought about her mother-in-law's cold dismissal. She thought about the hospital bracelet still around her wrist. She thought about the $2.57 in her account and the empty space where her future used to be. Then she looked back at Taejin and took his hand. His grip was firm and surprisingly warm. "Smart girl," he said. He pulled her toward the Genesis. One of his men opened the door. Nayella slid into leather seats that smelled like expensive cologne and gunpowder. Taejin settled beside her. The door closed. "Drive," he said to someone Nayella couldn't see. The vehicle moved smoothly away from the convenience store. Nayella pressed herself against the window, watching Seoul blur past through rain-streaked glass. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere safe," Taejin replied, "relatively speaking." "And then what?" He turned to look at her, and for the first time, something almost like curiosity flickered across his face. "Then," he said, "we find out whether you're strong enough to claim what your grandmother left behind, or whether you'll die trying." Nayella's throat went dry. "I didn't ask for any of this." "No one ever does," Taejin said quietly. "But the Lotus Seal doesn't care what you want. It only cares what you are." "And what am I?" His smile was sharp and humorless. "We're about to find out." The Genesis turned down a narrow street and descended into an underground tunnel that didn't appear on any map. The world above disappeared behind reinforced steel doors that closed with a pneumatic hiss. They drove in silence for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Finally, the vehicle stopped. Taejin opened the door and stepped out. Nayella followed. They were in some kind of private garage, concrete walls, fluorescent lighting, armed men positioned at every entrance. Taejin walked toward a steel elevator without looking back. "This way." Nayella hurried after him, her bare feet cold against the concrete. Inside the elevator, Taejin pressed his palm against a biometric scanner. The elevator descended smoothly. "Where are we?" Nayella asked. "The Ryu estate," Taejin said. "It's been in my family for 4 generations. Your grandmother used to visit here often." "I still don't believe you." "You will." The elevator doors opened onto a scene that stole Nayella's breath. Traditional Korean architecture blended seamlessly with modern security systems. Wooden beams and paper screens mixed with reinforced glass and surveillance cameras. Gardens stretched away in carefully manicured perfection beneath soft lighting. But it was the people that made Nayella's stomach clench. Dozens of them, all watching her with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. Men in suits, women in elegant dresses, guards with weapons barely concealed. They parted silently as Taejin walked through. He led Nayella down a corridor lined with photographs. She stopped in front of one. Her breath caught. It showed a younger version of her grandmother standing beside a Korean man in traditional dress. They were both smiling. Behind them, Seoul's skyline glittered like scattered diamonds. "That's my uncle," Taejin said quietly. "Ryu Min Seok. He was supposed to inherit the family business. Instead, he fell in love with a Nigerian student and brought shame to our name." He gestured toward Amara. "Your grandmother didn't just marry into our world. She conquered it. When my uncle was killed during a territorial dispute, everyone expected her to run. Instead, she took control of his operations and built something no one had ever seen before." "What?" Nayella whispered. "An empire built on intelligence instead of violence. She didn't sell drugs or traffic people. She dealt in information, political leverage, high-stakes gambling, and financial manipulation. She made herself indispensable to people who thought they owned the world." Taejin's voice dropped. "And then one night, she packed a single bag and vanished. No explanation, no goodbye. She left everything behind, including a fortune worth billions and a network that stretched across 3 continents. He turned to face Nayella directly. "For 26 years, we've been waiting for her to return. Instead, we got you." Nayela's head spun. I'm not her. No, Taejin agreed. You're not. The question is whether you can become someone worthy of what she left behind. I don't want it. That's irrelevant now. You activated the seal. Every syndicate in Korea knows you exist. They'll either try to use you or eliminate you. There's no neutral ground anymore. Nayela felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. So what happens now? Taejin studied her for a long moment. Now, he said, we see if you survive the night. He gestured toward a nearby room. Clean up, change clothes, eat something. You look like you're about to collapse. Nayela wanted to argue, but exhaustion crashed over her like a wave. She nodded and walked toward the room. Inside, she found a private bathroom with heated floors and a shower that felt like heaven against her rain-chilled skin. Fresh clothes waited on the bed, black pants, a soft sweater, shoes that actually fit. She dressed mechanically, her mind still trying to process everything. When she emerged, a young woman waited in the hallway. My name is Hana, she said in accented English. Mr. Ryu asked me to bring you to the dining room. Nayela followed her through winding corridors until they reached a traditional Korean dining room with low tables and floor cushions. Taejin sat alone, eating quietly. He gestured for Nayela to sit. She did. Food appeared immediately: rice, soup, grilled fish, vegetables. Her stomach growled despite everything. She ate in silence while Taejin watched. You're not what I expected, he said finally. What did you expect? Someone harder. Your grandmother was sharp as broken glass by the time I met her. When did you meet her? I was 12. She was already legendary. My father brought me to one of her strategy meetings and told me to watch carefully. She commanded a room full of men twice her age like they were children. I'd never seen anything like it. He paused. She looked at me once, just once, and I felt like she could see straight through me. Nayela set down her chopsticks. Why are you helping me? Taejin's expression hardened. Because your grandmother saved my father's life 3 times. Because our families are bound by debts that go back decades. And because... He hesitated. Because if the ivory serpent gets to you first, everything she built will be destroyed. Who is the ivory serpent? A ghost, Taejin said quietly. A man who spent the last 20 years consolidating power and waiting for this exact moment. He believes he has a claim to your grandmother's empire. If he captures you, he'll force you to access the Lotus accounts and then kill you. Nayela's blood ran cold. So I'm bait. No, Taejin said sharply. You're a weapon. You just don't know it yet. Before Nayela could respond, the door slid open. A man entered, older, wearing traditional Korean dress, his face weathered but sharp. We have movement, he said in Korean. Taejin stood immediately. How many? 15 vehicles, armed assault teams. They'll breach the outer perimeter in 6 minutes. Taejin's jaw tightened. He turned to Nayela. Stay here. Don't leave this room no matter what you hear. What's happening? The ivory serpent just declared war. He walked toward the door, then stopped. If anyone except me or Hana tries to enter this room, use this. He placed a small handgun on the table. Nayela stared at it in horror. I don't know how to... Point it at the threat and pull the trigger, Taejin said flatly. The safety's already off. Then he was gone. Nayela sat alone in the silent room, staring at the gun. Outside she heard shouting, then gunfire, then an explosion that shook the walls. She grabbed the gun with trembling hands, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst. The door slid open. Nayela raised the weapon. But it wasn't an enemy. It was Hana, blood streaming from a cut above her eye. We have to move, she gasped. They broke through the west wing. Mr. Ryu is holding them off, but... Another explosion, closer this time. Hana grabbed Nayela's arm. Come on! They ran through corridors filled with smoke and chaos. Armed men rushed past them. Glass shattered. Someone screamed. Hana pulled Nayela into a narrow stairwell and down into darkness. They emerged into some kind of underground bunker. Reinforced walls, emergency lighting, a single steel door. Wait here, Hana said. Don't open the door for anyone. Where are you going? To help fight. But you're the one who matters now, Hana said fiercely. If you die, everything your grandmother built dies with you. So stay alive. She disappeared back up the stairs. Nayela pressed herself against the cold wall, the gun still clutched in her shaking hands. Minutes crawled past like hours. The sounds of battle faded. Silence pressed down like a physical weight. Then footsteps. Slow, deliberate, descending the stairs. Nayela raised the gun, her finger on the trigger. The steel door creaked open. A figure stepped through. Tall, covered in blood. Limping slightly. Taejin. Nayela lowered the weapon, relief flooding through her. "Is it over?" she whispered. Taejin leaned against the wall, breathing hard. "For now." "Did we win?" His laugh was bitter. "We survived." "That's not the same thing." He looked at her, and something in his expression shifted. "You're still here," he said quietly. "I wasn't sure you would be." "Where else would I go? Most people would have run." "I tried running," Nayela said. "It didn't work." Taejin studied her for a long moment. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. "I had my people investigate your husband," he said. Nayela's stomach clenched. "Why?" "Because nothing about your marriage made sense. Chaehyun-seo is from one of Seoul's most powerful legal dynasties. They don't marry foreigners. They don't tolerate scandal. So why you?" He opened the folder. 3 years ago, rumors surfaced in certain circles about Amara Vale's missing fortune. The Seo family has connections to financial intelligence networks. They would have heard those rumors. He laid out photographs. 6 months later, Jae-hyun enrolled in an international law program in London. The same city where you were studying, the same university, the same department. Nayela's hands started shaking. "That's a coincidence." "There are no coincidences in our world," Taejin said coldly. "He targeted you, seduced you, married you, isolated you from anyone who might have warned you. The entire relationship was designed to position you where they could monitor you, waiting for the day you'd lead them to your grandmother's assets." He pulled out another document. "Even your pregnancy was convenient timing. It gave them legal claim to any inheritance you might receive." Nayela felt something inside her chest crack open. No. Every kiss, every promise, every "I love you." Taejin's voice was merciless. Manufactured. The folder slipped from Nayela's numb fingers. 3 years. 3 years of believing someone loved her. 3 years of trying to be good enough for a family that had been using her from the beginning. 3 years of lies. The tears came then, hot and furious, but they weren't tears of sadness anymore. They were rage. Pure, crystallized, burning rage. Taejin watched her silently. "This is the part where you break," he said quietly. "Or the part where you become dangerous." Nayela looked up at him through tears. "How do I make them pay?" Taejin's smile was sharp and cold and utterly ruthless. "Now you're asking the right questions." He extended his hand. "Welcome to the Lotus Dominion, Nayela Vale. Let's burn down everyone who ever thought you were weak." Nayela took his hand, and somewhere deep inside her chest, something that had been sleeping for 29 years finally woke up. Something her grandmother had left behind, something deadly. The first lesson came at dawn. Nayela woke to the sound of footsteps outside her door and the metallic click of a weapon being chambered. Her eyes snapped open, heart already racing before her mind caught up. The ceiling above her was unfamiliar, traditional wooden beams crossed with modern steel reinforcements. Soft light filtered through paper screens. For one disoriented second, she forgot where she was. Then she remembered. Seoul. The Ryu estate. Her grandmother's empire. Taejin's cold smile as he'd promised to help her burn down everyone who'd used her. The door slid open without warning. A woman entered. Not Hana, someone new. Older, maybe 40, with a scar running from her left temple to her jaw. She wore black tactical pants and a fitted shirt that didn't hide the shoulder holster beneath. "Up," she said it in Korean accented English. "Training starts in 10 minutes. Nayela sat up slowly, her body aching from yesterday's chaos. "Training for what?" The woman's expression didn't change. "For staying alive." She tossed a set of clothes onto the bed, black athletic wear, reinforced boots. "Change. Meet me in the courtyard. You're late already." She left without waiting for a response. Nayela dressed quickly, her fingers clumsy with exhaustion. When she stepped into the hallway, armed guards were positioned at every intersection. They watched her pass with expressions that ranged from curiosity to barely concealed contempt. She found the courtyard by following the sound of voices. It was larger than she'd expected, an open space surrounded by traditional architecture on 3 sides and a modern training facility on the 4th. Morning mist still clung to the ground. A dozen people were already there, moving through combat drills with mechanical precision. Taejin stood off to one side, watching. He'd changed from last night's blood-stained suit into dark training gear. His hair was wet, like he'd just showered. When he saw Nayela, something flickered across his face. Assessment, maybe, or calculation. The scarred woman appeared beside her. "I'm Kang Mira," she said. "I run tactical operations for the Ryu organization. Mr. Ryu has asked me to evaluate whether you're worth the considerable resources we're spending to keep you breathing." Nayela bristled. "I didn't ask for your protection." "No," Mira agreed. "You just activated a beacon that painted a target on your back and ours. So now we all get to deal with the consequences." She gestured toward the training mat. "Let's see what you're made of." Nayela stepped onto the mat, acutely aware of everyone watching. The other fighters had stopped their drills. Even Taejin was paying attention now. "Basic defensive stance," Mira instructed. "Show me." Nayela tried to remember self-defense classes she'd taken years ago in university. She raised her hands awkwardly, feet too close together. Mira moved so fast Nayela didn't even see it coming. One second she was standing, the next she was on her back, the air knocked from her lungs, staring up at the sky. "Dead," Mira said flatly. Again. Nayela pushed herself up, anger flooding through the pain. "I wasn't ready." "Your enemies won't wait for you to be ready." Mira gestured impatiently. "Again." This time Nayela tried to anticipate the attack. She shifted her weight, attempted to block. Mira swept her legs out from under her. Nayela hit the ground hard enough to taste blood. "Dead," Mira repeated. Around the courtyard, a few people laughed. Nayela's face burned with humiliation. She stood again, her entire body shaking. Whether from pain or rage, she couldn't tell anymore. "Again," Mira said. They went through it 15 times. 15 times Nayela ended up on the ground. 15 times Mira pronounced her dead. By the end, Nayela could barely stand. Sweat soaked through her clothes. Her muscles screamed. Her pride lay in tatters around her feet. "Enough!" Taejin's voice cut through the courtyard. He walked onto the mat, his footsteps silent. "She's useless," Mira said bluntly. 3 months of training won't fix this. She has no instinct, no aggression, no survival reflex worth mentioning. "Then we build them," Taejin replied. He turned to Nayela. "Do you know why you keep losing?" Nayela wiped blood from her split lip. "Because I don't know how to fight." "No," Taejin said. "Because you're still trying to be polite. You're telegraphing every move because some part of you is afraid of hurting her. You'd rather die than be rude." His eyes locked onto hers. "That ends now. In this world, hesitation kills you faster than bullets. So I'm going to ask you one question, and I want you to answer honestly." He stepped closer. "Do you want to survive, or do you want to be nice?" Nayela's jaw tightened. She thought about Jaehyun's face when he'd refused to meet her eyes, his mother's cold dismissal, the mistress laughing as she threw Nayela's belongings into the rain. 3 years of being nice. 3 years of swallowing insults and lowering her voice, and making herself smaller to fit into spaces that were never meant for her. And where had it gotten her? Barefoot on a Seoul street with $2.57 and a dead baby. "I want to survive," she said quietly. "Then prove it," Taejin replied. He nodded to Mira. Again. Mira moved. But this time, something shifted inside Nayela. This time, when Mira reached for her, Nayela didn't think about blocking correctly or maintaining proper form. She thought about 3 years of lies. She grabbed Mira's extended arm and pulled as hard as she could, throwing all her weight behind it. Mira stumbled, just for a second, surprised. It wasn't enough to win, but it was enough to prove she was willing to fight dirty. Mira recovered instantly and dropped Nayela with a precise strike to her solar plexus. But when Nayela looked up from the ground, gasping for air, Taejin was smiling. "Better," he said. "Do it again." The training continued for 3 hours. By the time Mira finally called a break, Nayela could barely lift her arms. She collapsed onto a bench, her entire body trembling with exhaustion. Taejin sat down beside her, holding out a bottle of water. She took it without speaking, too tired for words. "You did well," he said. Nayela laughed bitterly. "I lost every single round." "You fought back. That's more than most people manage on their first day." He studied her profile. "Your grandmother was like you once. soft, educated, believed the world operated on fairness and reason. What changed her? Violence, Tejin said simply. Enough violence that softness became a luxury she couldn't afford. Nayela turned to look at him. Is that what you're trying to do to me? I'm trying to keep you alive long enough to decide who you want to become. Before Nayela could respond, one of Tejin's men approached, the older man from last night, still wearing traditional dress despite the modern chaos surrounding them. We have a problem, he said in Korean. Tejin's expression hardened. What kind? The kind that requires your immediate attention. Tejin stood. Take her to the library, he told the man. Make sure she eats something. Then to Nayela. Rest. We'll continue this afternoon. He walked away before she could ask questions. The older man gestured politely. This way, Miss Vale? He led her through winding corridors until they reached a room that took Nayela's breath away. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined 3 walls. The fourth was entirely glass, overlooking a private garden where morning light filtered through cherry blossom trees. Traditional Korean furniture mixed with modern comfort, low tables, cushioned seating, soft lighting. My name is Park Jin-soo, the man said in careful English. I've served the Ryu family for 40 years. I also knew your grandmother well. Nayela's attention snapped to him. You knew Amara? Jin-soo nodded slowly. I was Mr. Ryu Min-seok's personal assistant when he met her. I watched their relationship develop. I attended their wedding. He moved to one of the bookshelves and pulled out a leather-bound album. I thought you might want to see these. He handed it to Nayela. She opened it with trembling fingers. Photographs spilled across the pages. Her grandmother. Younger, maybe 30, wearing a traditional Korean wedding hanbok in deep crimson and gold. Beside her stood a Korean man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Ryu Min-seok. They looked happy. Genuinely, radiantly happy. They loved each other, Jin-soo said quietly. Not the arranged partnership that both families expected. Real love. The kind that makes people stupid and brave. He pointed to another photograph, Amara standing in what looked like a corporate boardroom, surrounded by men in suits who were all watching her with expressions of wary respect. After Min-seok was killed, everyone expected her to return to Nigeria. Instead, she walked into a meeting of Seoul's most powerful crime bosses and announced she was taking over her husband's operations. Jin-soo's voice dropped. They laughed at her, a foreign woman with no connections, no muscle, no leverage. They gave her 1 week to vacate Min-seok's territory before they divided it among themselves. What did she do? She spent that week gathering intelligence, financial records, surveillance footage, evidence of corruption, proof of affairs and secret deals and buried bodies. Then she called another meeting and systematically destroyed the reputation of every man who'd laughed at her. Jin-soo's eyes gleamed with something close to admiration. By the end of that meeting, 3 of them had lost their political connections. 2 were facing criminal investigations. 1 committed suicide rather than face the scandals she'd exposed. And your grandmother walked out of that room as the most feared woman in Seoul. Nayela stared at the photograph. She doesn't look like a crime lord. The best ones never do. Jin-soo turned the page to another image, Amara holding a baby. Nayela's breath caught. Is that my mother? Yes. Your grandmother raised her here in Seoul for the first 5 years of her life. But eventually, she realized this world would destroy an innocent child. So she sent your mother to London to live with relatives. And she stayed here. She had obligations, enemies, a network that depended on her. She couldn't leave. Jin-soo closed the album gently. Until one night, 26 years ago, when she packed a single bag and vanished without warning. She left no instructions, no succession plan, just a sealed vault that no one has been able to open since. He looked at Nayela directly. We believe you're the key to that vault. Nayela's stomach twisted. I don't know anything about... The door slammed open. Tejin stood in the entrance, his face dark with barely controlled fury. Get out, he said to Jin-soo. The older man bowed and left immediately. Tejin crossed the room and pulled Nayela to her feet with surprising gentleness given the rage radiating off him. We need to talk, he said. About what? About the fact that your loving husband just filed a missing persons report with the Seoul police claiming you were kidnapped. Nayela's blood ran cold. What? Tejin pulled out his phone and showed her a news headline. Attorney's wife missing after hospital discharge. Family. Fears abduction. Below it, a photograph of Nayela and Jae-hyun on their wedding day. They looked so happy, it made her want to vomit. He's going public, Taejin said, which means we have maybe 48 hours before this becomes an international incident. The police will start investigating. Reporters will dig into your background, and eventually someone will connect you to your grandmother's legacy. So what do we do? Taejin's jaw clenched. We give them a different story. He pulled out a folder, different from the one last night, but just as damning. My people have been investigating the CO family's business dealings. We found enough evidence to bury them 10 times over. Financial fraud, organized crime connections, money laundering through their law firm. If we release this information, Jaehyun's missing person report becomes irrelevant. You want to destroy his family. I want to remove the threat, Taejin corrected. Right now they're painting you as a victim who needs rescuing. If we flip that narrative, make them the criminals and you the whistleblower who fled an abusive situation, then their credibility collapses. Nayella's hands shook as she looked through the evidence. Bank transfers, shell corporations, photographs of Jaehyun's father meeting with known Yakuza members. This will ruin them, she whispered. Yes. His mother, his sisters, everyone connected to their name. Yes. Taejin's voice was merciless. This is what power looks like, Nayella. You either use it or you let them use you. There's no middle ground. Nayella thought about the woman who'd laughed while throwing her belongings into the rain. She thought about Jae-hyun's carefully blank expression in the hospital. She thought about 3 years of isolation and manipulation. Do it, she said quietly. Taejin studied her face for a long moment. Once we release this, there's no going back. You'll be declaring war on one of Seoul's most powerful families. They declared war on me first, Nayella replied. I'm just responding. Something shifted in Taejin's expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. All right, then. He made a call, speaking rapid Korean to someone on the other end. When he hung up, he turned back to Nayella. It's done. By tomorrow morning, every major news outlet in Korea will have copies of this evidence. The CO family's empire will start crumbling within 72 hours. Nayella nodded, feeling strangely numb. What happens now? Now, Taejin said, we prepare for their retaliation. The afternoon training session was worse than the morning. Mira pushed Nayella past exhaustion into something darker. Every muscle screamed, sweat poured down her face, her vision blurred, but she didn't quit. She thought about Jae-hyun's face every time she wanted to collapse. She thought about his mother's contempt every time Mira knocked her down. She thought about 3 years of lies every time she pulled herself back up. By sunset, she'd managed to land 3 actual hits on Mira. They were sloppy, desperate, barely controlled, but they connected. Mira called the session with something almost like approval in her expression. Not completely hopeless, she said. We'll continue tomorrow. Nayella stumbled back to her room, collapsed onto the bed fully clothed, and fell immediately into unconsciousness. She dreamed of rain and broken jewelry boxes, and her grandmother's eyes watching her from old photographs. When she woke, it was dark. Someone was in her room. Nayella's hand shot toward the nightstand where she'd left the gun Taejin had given her. Relax, Hana's voice came from the shadows. It's just me. The younger woman stepped into the moonlight filtering through the window. The cut above her eye from last night's attack had been stitched closed. Mr. Ryu sent me to check on you, Hana said. Make sure you're okay. I'm fine. You're not fine. You look like you've been hit by a truck. Nayella sat up slowly, her entire body protesting. Why do you work for him? She asked. Hana's expression closed off. That's personal. Everything here seems personal. The younger woman hesitated, then sat down on the edge of the bed. My family was killed when I was 16, she said quietly. Rival gang targeted them to send a message. I survived because I was at school. Mr. Ryu found me living on the streets 2 weeks later. He gave me a choice, die slowly or learn to fight back. She looked at Nayella directly. I chose to fight. Haven't regretted it since. Does it get easier? No. No, Hana said honestly, but you get stronger. Eventually the weight becomes bearable. She stood to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I think you'll survive this. You've got something most people don't. What's that? Nothing left to lose. After Hana left, Nayella couldn't fall back asleep. She wandered through the estate's corridors, following the sound of voices until she found herself outside a traditional meeting room. The door was partially open. Inside, Taejin sat with several men Nayela didn't recognize. They were speaking Korean, but she caught her grandmother's name repeated several times. Still don't understand why we're protecting her. Liability, not an asset. Ivory Serpent won't stop until... Taejin's voice cut through the complaints like a blade. The decision has been made. Anyone who has a problem with it can leave now. Silence. That's what I thought, Taejin continued. Nayela Vale stays under our protection until we've secured the Lotus assets. After that, she can choose her own path. One of the men spoke up. And if she chooses to walk away, just hands everything back to us. Then we've lost nothing, Taejin replied. But I don't think she will. Why not? Because I watched her today. I saw what happens when you back her into a corner. She doesn't run. She learns to bite. Taejin's voice dropped. Her grandmother was exactly the same way. Nayela stepped back from the door, her heart pounding. She wasn't sure whether to feel flattered or frightened by his assessment. The next morning brought news that changed everything. Nayela was eating breakfast with Jinsu when Taejin burst into the dining room holding a tablet. Look at this, he said, showing her the screen. SEO family law firm under investigation. Ties to organized crime alleged. Attorney Jae-hyun Seo questioned in corruption. Probe missing wife. May have fled abusive marriage, sources claim. The headlines scrolled past, each one more damning than the last. Photographs of Jae-hyun being escorted into a police station, his mother shielding her face from cameras, their family home surrounded by reporters. It's working, Taejin said with grim satisfaction. The narrative has shifted. You're no longer the victim who needs rescuing. You're the brave woman who escaped. Nayela stared at the images, waiting to feel something. Guilt, regret, satisfaction. Instead, she just felt empty. They're calling me, she said quietly. My phone has 73 missed calls from Jae-hyun's number. Don't answer. What if he... No, Taejin said firmly. He lost the right to your attention the moment he threw you away. Let him drown. But that night, alone in her room, Nayela listened to the voicemails. The first few were Jae-hyun's mother, her voice dripping false concern. Nayela, darling, we're so worried. Please come home. We can work this out. Then Jae-hyun himself. Nayela, I don't know what you're doing, but you need to stop. These accusations are destroying my family. Whatever I did to hurt you, I'm sorry. Just please, come back and we'll talk. His voice cracked on the last message. I loved you. I know you don't believe that anymore, but I did. Maybe not at first, but somewhere along the way it became real for me. Please don't do this. Nayela deleted them all. But his words echoed in her mind for hours. Maybe it became real. She wanted to believe that was a lie too. It was easier that way. Training continued for 5 more days. Each morning, Mira beat the softness out of her. Each afternoon, Taejin taught her about power, how to read people, how to identify leverage, how to turn someone's strength into their weakness. Each night, Nayela collapsed into dreamless sleep, too exhausted to think. By the end of the week, she could last 3 full minutes against Mira before getting taken down. It wasn't much, but it was progress. On the 6th day, Taejin called her into his private office. It was the first time she'd seen it. Minimalist design, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's skyline. Traditional art mixed with modern technology. He stood with his back to her, staring out at the city. We've received an invitation, he said without turning around. To what? The Imperial Orion Gala. It's Seoul's most exclusive political and business event. Everyone who matters will be there. Politicians, business leaders, underground power brokers. He finally turned to face her, including the Seo family. Nayela's stomach clenched. You want me to go? I want you to make a statement, Taejin corrected. Right now, you're a rumor. A scandal. A woman who might or might not exist. If you appear at the gala beside me, you become real. You become someone they have to acknowledge. And if I refuse, then you stay hidden in this estate while other people fight your battles for you. Is that what you want? Nayela thought about it. A week ago, she would have said yes. A week ago, she would have chosen safety over confrontation. But that woman had died somewhere between the rain-soaked convenience store and Mira's brutal training sessions. When is it? She asked. Taejin's smile was sharp and approving. Tomorrow night. The next 24 hours passed in a blur. A team of stylists descended on Nayela like a tactical unit. They measured her, dressed her, painted her face with precision that felt almost military. When they finally showed her the result, Nayela barely recognized herself. The woman in the mirror wore a midnight black silk gown that moved like liquid shadow. Gold accents wound through her braided hair like a crown. Her makeup was subtle but devastating, highlighting features she'd been taught to downplay her entire life. She looked powerful, dangerous, nothing like the soft woman Jae-hyun had married. Perfect, the head stylist said with satisfaction. That evening, Taejin appeared at her door wearing a perfectly tailored black suit. He stopped when he saw her. For a long moment, he just stared. "You look," he started, then seemed to think better of it. "Ready?" Nayela nodded, not trusting her voice. They walked through the estate together, his hand resting lightly against the small of her back. The gesture felt possessive, protective. Nayela found she didn't mind. The car waiting for them was different from the armored Genesis. This was a Rolls-Royce Phantom in gleaming black, the kind of vehicle that made statements before you even stepped out. Inside, the leather smelled like money and violence. Taejin settled beside her as the car pulled away from the estate. "Nervous?" he asked. "Terrified." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small jewelry box. "This belonged to your grandmother," he said, opening it. Inside was a delicate gold necklace with a small lotus pendant, simple, elegant, unmistakable. "She wore this to every important meeting," Taejin continued. "It was her signature. Everyone knew what it meant." He gestured for Nayela to turn around. She did, and felt his fingers brush against her neck as he fastened the clasp. "Now they'll know who you are," he said quietly. The drive to the Imperial Orion Hotel took 40 minutes. As they approached, Nayela saw the spectacle waiting for them. Red carpets, camera flashes, crowds of reporters and photographers pressed against velvet ropes, security everywhere, Seoul's elite arriving in a parade of luxury vehicles. "Last chance to back out," Taejin said. Nayela touched the lotus pendant at her throat. "No," she said. "Let's make them remember this." The Phantom pulled up to the entrance, doors opened. Taejin stepped out first, buttoning his jacket with practiced ease. Then he extended his hand to Nayela. She took it and emerged into a storm of camera flashes. The effect was immediate. Conversation stopped mid-sentence, heads turned, whispers erupted like wildfire. Nayela Vale, the missing wife, the scandal. The woman supposedly kidnapped or rescued or running or hiding, depending on which news outlet you believed. Here, now, beside Ryu Taejin, wearing her grandmother's necklace. They walked down the red carpet together, and Nayela felt every eye on her. Judgment, curiosity, fear, hunger. She kept her spine straight and her expression neutral. Inside, the ballroom was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers cascaded from vaulted ceilings. Gold leaf decorated every surface. Champagne flowed from fountains. Live music drifted through conversations conducted in a dozen languages. Seoul's power concentrated into one glittering space. Taejin guided her through the crowd with easy confidence. People parted for them. Men bowed slightly. Women assessed her with calculating eyes. "That's Senator Kim," Taejin murmured, nodding toward an elderly man surrounded by advisors. "Controls most of the construction contracts in Seoul. Next to him is Park Industries' chairman, shipping and logistics. The woman in red is Judge Han, Seoul Central Court. He was mapping power for her, teaching her to see the invisible architecture that held this world together. They'd made it halfway across the ballroom when Nayela saw them. The Seo family. Jae-hyun's mother stood near the bar, her face carefully composed despite the scandal swirling around her family name. His father was engaged in intense conversation with someone Nayela didn't recognize. His two sisters clustered together, whispering behind champagne glasses. And Jae-hyun, he stood slightly apart from his family, staring directly at her. Their eyes met across the crowded ballroom, his face drained of all color. Nayela felt Taejin's hand tighten against her back. "Do you want to leave?" he asked quietly. "No," Nayela said. "I want him to see exactly what he threw away." She started walking toward Jae-hyun. Taejin matched her stride, a dark presence at her shoulder. The crowd seemed to sense the confrontation coming. Conversations faded. People edged back, creating a clear path between Nayela and her ex-husband. Jae-hyun's mother noticed first. Her expression shifted from composed to panicked in seconds, but it was too late to stop what was happening. Nayela stopped 3 feet from Jae-hyun. Up close, she could see how the scandal had affected him. Dark circles under his eyes, a slight tremor in his hands. The golden son of Seoul's legal elite looked like he hadn't slept in days. Good. Hello, Jae-hyun, she said in perfect, crisp English. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nayela, he finally managed. You're okay. Did you expect me not to be? I thought the news said... He struggled to find words. Where have you been? Somewhere you'll never find me again. She let the words hang between them like a blade. Jae-hyun's eyes darted to Tae-jin, then back to her. Is he holding you against your will? Because if you need help... Nayela laughed. The sound cut through the ballroom like breaking glass. That's rich, she said. You throw me out with nothing, file a fake missing persons report, and now you're offering to rescue me? I never wanted to hurt you. But you did it anyway. Her voice dropped to something colder. You used me. Your entire family used me. 3 years of lies designed to position me where you could monitor me, hoping I'd eventually lead you to my grandmother's fortune. Jae-hyun's face went white. Around them, the watching crowd leaned in slightly, hungry for every word. That's not... he started. Don't, Nayela interrupted. I've seen the evidence. I know everything. How your family discovered rumors about Amara Vale. How they researched me. How you were sent to London specifically to seduce and marry me. She stepped closer. Even the pregnancy was convenient, wasn't it? Legal claim to any inheritance I might receive. Jae-hyun looked like he might be sick. It wasn't like that, he whispered. Maybe at first, but I fell in love with you. That part was real. Was it? Nayela's smile was cruel. Or did you just convince yourself it was real because it made using me feel less monstrous? Before he could respond, Tae-jin stepped forward. His presence shifted the entire energy of the confrontation. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent ballroom. I'd like to formally introduce Nayela Vale. He paused, letting the name sink in. Granddaughter of Amara Vale, heir to the Lotus Dominion. Shock detonated through the crowd. The Lotus Dominion, a name that hadn't been spoken publicly in decades. A legend Seoul's underworld still whispered about in careful tones. And now its heir stood in the middle of their most exclusive gala, wearing her grandmother's necklace like a declaration of war. Nayela saw Jae-hyun's mother sway slightly, one hand gripping a nearby table for support. His father's face had gone ashen. Around the ballroom, powerful men and women exchanged worried glances. Ms. Vale has graciously agreed to work with my organization, Tae-jin continued smoothly. Together, we'll be recovering and managing the considerable assets her grandmother left behind. Assets that include intelligence networks spanning 3 continents, financial holdings worth billions, and political leverage over some very important people. He let that threat hang in the air. I'm sure you all understand the implications. Then he turned to Nayela, his expression softening almost imperceptibly. Would you like to say anything? Nayela looked at Jae-hyun one last time. You threw me away because you thought I was worthless, she said quietly. Funny thing about discarded women. Sometimes they come back armed. She turned her back on him and let Tae-jin guide her away. Behind them, she heard Jae-hyun's mother's voice, sharp with barely controlled panic. This is a disaster. Do you understand what you've done? But Nayela didn't look back. She'd said everything she needed to say. The rest of the gala passed in a blur of introductions and carefully worded conversations. People who'd ignored her weeks ago now treated her like visiting royalty. Senators wanted meetings. Business leaders offered partnerships. Even the judge found time to exchange pleasantries. Power recognized power. And now they recognized her. Later, in a private suite overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline, Tae-jin poured 2 glasses of whiskey and handed one to Nayela. You did well tonight, he said. Nayela took the glass but didn't drink. I destroyed a man I used to love. You destroyed a man who never loved you. There's a difference. Is there? Tae-jin studied her face. Are you having regrets? I don't know what I'm having. She walked to the window, staring out at the city below. A week ago, I was nobody, a discarded wife with no money and no future. Now I'm, what, a crime lord's heir? A weapon you're pointing at your enemies? You're whoever you decide to be, Taejin said quietly. He moved to stand beside her. Your grandmother spent years building an empire from nothing. She transformed pain into power. Maybe that's in your blood too. Nayela turned to look at him, really look at him. Sharp features softened slightly by whiskey and dim lighting, dark eyes that missed nothing, a mouth that rarely smiled but somehow made each rare smile feel earned. He was dangerous, ruthless, exactly the kind of man she should run from. Instead, she found herself stepping closer. Why are you really helping me? She asked. I told you. Debts to your grandmother. That's not the whole truth. Taejin's jaw tightened. No, he admitted. It's not. He set down his glass and turned to face her fully. When I was 12 years old, I watched your grandmother walk into a room full of men who wanted her dead and systematically destroy them using nothing but intelligence and will. It was the most terrifying and beautiful thing I'd ever seen. His voice dropped. I spent my entire life trying to become that ruthless, that unstoppable. But there was always something missing, some capacity for absolute brutality that I couldn't quite access. He reached out and touched the lotus pendant at her throat. Then you walked into a convenience store with $2.57 and activated a beacon that should have gotten you killed. And instead of running or begging or collapsing, you looked at me and asked how to survive. In that moment, I saw her, your grandmother. That same fire that refuses to be extinguished no matter how much the world tries to drown it. His fingers brushed against her collarbone. So yes, I'm helping you because of debts and strategy and political calculation, but I'm also helping you because I want to see what you become when you stop being afraid of your own power. The air between them felt charged. Nayela's heart hammered against her ribs. She should step back, maintain distance. Remember that this was business, not... Taejin kissed her. Not gently, not carefully. It was collision and hunger and rage and need all compressed into a single moment. Nayela kissed him back like a woman drowning, desperate for air. His hands found her waist, pulling her against him. Her fingers tangled in his hair. The whiskey glasses crashed to the floor, forgotten. This wasn't the careful, planned seduction Jae-hyun had used. This was two storms meeting and destroying everything between them. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Taejin's expression was raw. That was, he started. A mistake, Nayela finished. But she didn't move away. Neither did he. We should, Taejin tried again. His phone buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. He pulled it out, his expression shifting instantly from want to alarm. We need to leave, he said. Now. What's wrong? The estate is under attack. Nayela's blood froze. What? Taejin was already moving, pulling her toward the door. 3 minutes ago, armed teams breached the outer perimeter. They're going after anyone left inside. Hana is handling it, Taejin said grimly. But we can't go back there. It's compromised. They ran through corridors. Taejin's hand locked around her wrist. Behind them, Nayela heard shouts, running footsteps, then gunfire. Taejin pulled her into a service elevator. The doors closed just as bullets tore through the hallway they'd been standing in seconds before. The ivory serpent? Nayela gasped. Had to be, Taejin replied, his voice tight. This was coordinated, timed to hit while we were away from the estate. The elevator descended into underground parking. They emerged running. The Phantom waited with its engine already running. Taejin's driver had blood streaking down his face, but his hands were steady on the wheel. They threw themselves into the back seat. Go, Taejin ordered. The car peeled out of the garage with tires screaming. Nayela twisted around to look through the rear window. Behind them, the Imperial Orion Hotel's upper floors were lit with muzzle flashes. They're killing everyone, she whispered. No, Taejin said grimly. They're sending a message. His phone rang. He answered in rapid Korean, his expression growing darker with each word. When he hung up, he looked at Nayela with something close to regret. The estate fell, he said quietly. Hana got most of our people out, but we lost a lot. How many? 17 confirmed dead, another dozen missing. Nayela felt like she might vomit. This is my fault. This is war, Taejin corrected. And you didn't start it. But Nayela barely heard him. 17 people dead. Because she'd activated a card. Because she'd refused to stay invisible. Because she'd chosen survival over submission. The car drove through Seoul's dark streets while sirens wailed in the distance. Finally, Tejan spoke again. There's something else you need to know. His voice was careful, too careful. The ivory serpent left a message at the estate, written in blood on the main hall wall. What did it say? Tejan met her eyes. Give me Amara's daughter, and I'll let the rest live. Nayella's world tilted. Amara's daughter, she repeated slowly. My mother died 12 years ago. Did she? The question hung between them like a blade. What are you saying? Tejan pulled out his phone and showed her a photograph. It had been taken inside the attacked estate. The message was there, written in blood just like he'd said, but beneath it was something else. A second line. Your mother sends her regards. Nayella stared at the words until they stopped making sense. That's impossible, she whispered. Is it? Tejan asked quietly. Your grandmother was a master of deception. She faked her own disappearance for 26 years. Is it really so hard to believe she helped your mother do the same? But why? To protect her, Tejan said. To keep her away from this world. And maybe, he hesitated, maybe to use her later, when the time was right. Nayella's hands trembled. If my mother is alive, then the ivory serpent has her, Tejan finished. And he's using her as bait. The car drove on through darkness, while Nayella's mind shattered and reformed around this new impossible reality. Her mother, alive, held hostage by a man who wanted Nayella dead or compliant. We have to, she started. We have to think, Tejan interrupted. He wants you emotional, reckless, making decisions out of fear instead of strategy. That's my mother. If she's even still alive. The cruelty of that statement hit Nayella like a physical blow. Tejan's expression softened slightly. I'm sorry, but we have to consider the possibility that this is a trap designed to make you surrender yourself. And if it's not, if she's really there, then we need a plan better than walking into an obvious ambush. Nayella stared out the window at Seoul blurring past. A week ago, she'd been nobody. Now she was an heir to a criminal empire, a target for violent men, a daughter who might have a mother she thought was dead, and she had no idea who to trust or what to believe anymore. The car pulled up to a nondescript building in a part of Seoul Nayella didn't recognize. Safe house, Tejan explained. We'll regroup here while I figure out our next move. They climbed out into cold night air. Tejan's phone buzzed again. He glanced at it, and his entire body went rigid. What? Nayella asked. He showed her the screen. A video message. From an unknown number. Tejan hit play. The video quality was poor, grainy, dimly lit, but Nayella could make out a figure tied to a chair in what looked like an abandoned warehouse. A woman. Her face was bruised, her hair matted with blood, but when she looked directly at the camera, Nayella's heart stopped, because she knew those eyes. She'd seen them every time she looked in a mirror. It was her mother. A voice spoke off-camera, male, accented, cold. Nayella Vale, I believe we have something that belongs to you. The camera shifted. A man stepped into frame. Tall, scarred, with eyes that carried the same shape as Amara's in all those old photographs. My name is Malik Vale, he said. Your uncle. And we need to have a family conversation. He smiled. You have 24 hours to present yourself at the location I'm sending. Come alone, unarmed, ready to access your grandmother's vault. He walked closer to the camera. Or I start sending you pieces of your mother, one every hour, until there's nothing left. The screen went black. Nayella couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything except stare at the phone where her mother's terrified face had been seconds before. Tejan's hand found her shoulder. Nayella, I have to go, she said. It's a trap. I don't care. He'll kill you both. Then I die trying to save her. Nayella spun to face him, tears streaming down her face. You don't understand. I watched her die. I stood at her funeral. I mourned her for 12 years, and now you're telling me she's been alive this whole time and I'm just supposed to let her die again because it might be strategically unwise? Her voice cracked. That's my mother. Tejan pulled her against his chest. She fought him at first, but he held on. Eventually her resistance broke. She collapsed against him, sobbing like the world was ending. And maybe it was. Because in 24 hours, Nayella would have to make an impossible choice. Save her mother and lose herself. Or save herself and lose the only family she had left. There was no right answer, only different ways to break. 24 hours felt like both an eternity and no time at all. Nayela sat in the safe house's bare concrete room, staring at her phone while the deadline ticked closer. The video of her mother played on loop in her mind. Those bruises, that fear, those eyes that looked so much like her own. Taejin had left her alone an hour ago after their argument escalated into something ugly and raw. "You can't save someone who might already be dead," he'd said. "She's alive. I saw her. You saw what he wanted you to see, a woman tied to a chair in bad lighting. For all you know, that video is years old, a manipulation designed to make you surrender yourself." Nayela had thrown a glass at the wall. It shattered with a sound that felt satisfying for exactly 3 seconds. "Then I go and find out. And when he kills you both? At least I tried." Taejin's expression had gone cold then, distant, the same look he probably gave people before having them eliminated. "Your grandmother would never have made this mistake," he'd said quietly. "She understood that sometimes you have to sacrifice pieces to win the game." "My mother isn't a piece. In this world, everyone is." He'd walked out after that. Now Nayela sat alone with 18 hours remaining and no plan except the suicidal one forming in her chest. Go to the location, face her uncle, trade herself for her mother, die knowing she'd tried. The door opened. Hana entered, her arm in a sling from the estate attack. She carried a tray with food Nayela wouldn't eat and tea she wouldn't drink. "You need to rest," Hana said in her clipped English. "I need my mother back." Hana set down the tray and sat across from her. "Can I tell you something?" Nayela didn't respond, but Hana continued anyway. "When I was 17, a rival gang kidnapped my younger brother. They sent me videos just like the one you received. Told me to come alone with money we didn't have." Her voice was flat, clinical. "I went. Of course I went. I was stupid and desperate and thought love would somehow protect us both." She touched the scar on her temple. "I got this when they beat me unconscious. When I woke up, my brother was already dead. Had been dead for 3 days before they even sent the first video. They'd killed him immediately and just kept the footage to use as bait." Nayela's stomach turned. "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry," Hana said sharply. "Learn. Malik Vale didn't keep your mother alive out of kindness. He kept her alive because she's leverage. The moment you give him what he wants, you both become worthless." "So what am I supposed to do? Nothing? You're supposed to think like a Vale instead of a victim." Hana stood to leave, then paused at the door. "Your grandmother once told my predecessor that the hardest part of power isn't making ruthless decisions. It's living with them afterward." She left Nayela alone with that thought. Hours crawled past. Nayela tried to sleep but kept seeing her mother's face. Tried to eat, but the food tasted like ash. Tried to plan, but every scenario ended with someone she loved dead. At dawn, Taejin returned. He looked like he hadn't slept either. His suit was rumpled, his hair uncombed, dark circles shadowed his eyes. "I have a proposal," he said without preamble. "I'm listening." "We go together. Not to surrender, to negotiate." Nayela shook her head. He said, "Come alone." "And you believe him?" Taejin's voice was sharp. "He's a terrorist holding your mother hostage. His word means nothing. If I show up with an army, he kills her immediately. If you show up alone, he kills you both." Taejin crossed the room and crouched in front of her chair so they were eye level. "Let me do what I do best. Let me turn this into a transaction instead of an execution." "How?" "Malik wants access to the Lotus Vault. We give him access, but only you can open it. That makes you valuable alive. We use that leverage to extract your mother first. And then we kill him before he can touch the fortune inside." It was a plan. Barely. Built on assumptions and hope, and the idea that Malik Vale valued money more than vengeance, but it was better than walking in to die. "Okay," Nayela said quietly. Taejin's expression shifted, relief mixed with something darker. "You'll do exactly what I say. When I say it, no heroics." "I'm not a hero." "No," he agreed. "But you're someone who thinks love will save you. It won't. Only power saves people in our world." He stood and pulled out his phone. "The meat location is an abandoned factory in Buchan. Industrial area, lots of cover, easy escape routes. Malik chose it well. When do we leave?" 2 hours. That gives my people time to position around the perimeter. Tejin moved toward the door, then stopped. There's something you should know. His voice was careful again. Too careful. About your mother. Nyla's pulse spiked. What about her? I had my intelligence team dig into her supposed death 12 years ago. The funeral you attended, the death certificate, all of it. He pulled out a tablet and showed her documents. The certificate was real, filed with proper authorities, but the body was never positively identified by anyone except your grandmother. Nyela's hands trembled as she read. What are you saying? I'm saying Amara orchestrated your mother's disappearance the same way she orchestrated her own, made it look official, made you believe it, and then hid her somewhere safe. Why? Because you were 19 and in university and vulnerable. If Amara's enemies knew your mother was alive, they would have used her as leverage, so Amara killed her on paper and hid her in reality. Tejin's voice dropped. The question is, where has she been all this time? And why didn't she ever contact you? The implications hit Nyela like physical blows. 12 years. 12 years of mourning. 12 years of believing she was completely alone. And her mother had been alive somewhere, letting her grieve. Maybe she didn't know Amara faked her death, Nyela whispered. Maybe she thought it was real too. Maybe, Tejin said. Or maybe she chose to stay hidden even after your grandmother disappeared, chose to let you think she was dead rather than reach out. Why would she do that? Tejin didn't answer. He didn't have to. The answer was obvious and devastating, because staying hidden was safer than being Nyela's mother. The drive to Bucheon took 90 minutes through morning traffic. Nyela sat in the back of an armored Mercedes, wearing a bulletproof vest under a black jacket that Tejin had insisted on. 3 vehicles followed them, 2 ahead, 1 behind, all filled with armed men who looked like they ate violence for breakfast. Tejin sat beside her, speaking rapid Korean into his phone, coordinating positions. Snipers are in place, he told Nyela. 2 on the building east of the factory, 2 on the water tower to the north. If Malik tries anything, they'll drop him before he can blink. And if he has snipers too? Then this becomes a very different kind of negotiation. The factory appeared through the morning haze, a skeletal concrete structure surrounded by rusted chain-link fencing and dead grass. Broken windows gaped like missing teeth. Graffiti covered every surface. The perfect place for people to die quietly. Their convoy stopped 200 meters away. Tejin's phone buzzed. He answered, listened, then hung up. Malik's people are inside. Thermal imaging shows at least 15 bodies, could be more in the basement levels. He turned to Nyela. Last chance to walk away. No. Then remember, you're the only thing keeping him from the vault. As long as he thinks he needs you alive, you have power. Don't give that up for sentiment. They exited the vehicle. Tejin's men fanned out in tactical formation, weapons ready, but not raised. Professional, controlled. Nyela walked beside Tejin toward the factory's main entrance, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst through the bulletproof vest. They stopped at the door. It opened from the inside. A man stepped out, Korean, maybe 30, with dead eyes and a pistol in his belt. Only the woman, he said in Korean. Tejin replied in the same language, his tone sharp. The man shook his head. Malik's orders, the woman alone or nobody enters. Tejin's jaw clenched. He turned to Nyela. Don't do this. I have to. You walk through that door alone and I can't protect you. I know. Nyela stepped forward before she could change her mind. The guard grabbed her arm, roughly, checking for weapons. His hands patted down her sides, her legs, invasive and deliberate. He found the small knife Tejin had given her tucked into her boot. He threw it aside with a disgusted sound. Then he shoved her through the door. It slammed shut behind her. Darkness swallowed her whole. Nyela's eyes adjusted slowly. She was in some kind of entrance corridor, concrete walls, fluorescent lights flickering overhead, the smell of rust and decay. Footsteps echoed ahead. This way. A different voice. Female, cold. Nyela followed the sound deeper into the factory. The corridor opened into a massive central room. Machinery rusted in corners. Empty oil drums were scattered across the floor. Makeshift lights had been strung up, casting harsh shadows. And in the center, tied to a metal chair, was her mother. Nyela's breath caught. It was really her. Older, thinner, bruised and bloodied, but alive. Their eyes met across the space. Her mother's lips formed a single word. Run. Touching reunion, a male voice said from the shadows. Malik Vale stepped into the light. He looked nothing like the photographs Nayela had seen of her grandmother, yet something in his bone structure echoed Amar's features. Tall, scarred along the left side of his face, his eyes carried the same intensity but twisted into something bitter. He studied Nayela the way a scientist might examine an insect. "You look like her," he said quietly. "My mother." Same defiant expression. "Let her go," Nayela said, gesturing toward her mother. Malik smiled. "No pleasantries? No, 'Hello, uncle, I've never met'? Amara raised you better than that." "Amara's dead." "Is she?" Malik's smile widened. "Are you sure about that?" Nayela's stomach dropped. "What?" Malik circled her slowly, predatory. "Did you really think the great Black Lotus Queen would just disappear without a plan? That she'd abandon an empire worth billions because of a guilty conscience?" He laughed, sharp and humorless. "She's been watching all of you, pulling strings, waiting for the perfect moment to reclaim what she built." "You're lying." "Am I?" Malik pulled out his phone and showed her a photograph. It was recent, time-stamped 3 days ago. A woman sitting in a cafe somewhere tropical, dark skin, gray hair in elegant twists, sunglasses hiding most of her face. But Nayela recognized the pendant around her neck, a lotus flower, the same one her grandmother had worn in every old photograph. "She's alive," Malik said softly. "Has been the whole time, running her empire from the shadows while everyone thought she was dead or hiding." He gestured toward Nayela's mother, including her own daughter, including her granddaughter, all pawns in whatever game she's been playing for the last 26 years. Nayela felt the ground shift beneath her feet. "Why?" she whispered. "Because that's what Amara does," Malik said bitterly. "She uses people, discards them when they're no longer useful, replaces them with newer versions." His voice turned sharp. "She did it to me, her own son. Threw me away because I wasn't Korean enough for this world, wasn't ruthless enough, wasn't willing to become the monster she needed." He moved closer to Nayela. "So she waited for you to grow up, waited for you to become desperate enough to activate the Lotus Seal, waited for all the pieces to move into position." "Position for what?" "For the final transfer," Malik said. "The vault your grandmother left behind doesn't just contain money, it contains control, access codes to accounts and networks, and leverage that spans governments and corporations and criminal organizations across 3 continents." He pulled out a knife, long, wicked, catching the harsh light. "Whoever opens that vault doesn't just inherit a fortune. They inherit absolute power, the kind of power that makes kings kneel." He pressed the blade against Nayela's mother's throat. "And you're going to open it for me." Nayela's hands clenched into fists. "If I do, you'll kill us both." "Probably," Malik agreed. "But if you don't, I'll kill her slowly. Make you watch. Make you hear every scream." He leaned down next to her mother's ear, but kept his eyes on Nayela. "How much is your mother's life worth? A fortune you never asked for? An empire built on blood you didn't spill?" Nayela's mind raced. Outside, Taejin was positioned with snipers and armed men. If she could just stall. Just buy enough time for them to breach. "Don't bother," Malik said, reading her thoughts. "Ryu Taejin's people are being handled as we speak." He gestured toward a laptop set up on a nearby table. The screen showed multiple camera feeds. Nayela's blood froze. She recognized the locations, the vehicles they'd arrived in. Taejin standing outside the factory entrance, and surrounding him, closing in from multiple directions, were at least 30 armed men. "You walked into a trap," Malik said calmly. "The factory, the dramatic video, the deadline, all designed to get you and Taejin in the same place at the same time." He smiled. "The ivory serpent sends his regards." Before Nayela could process that, gunfire erupted from the camera feeds. She watched in horror as Taejin's men scrambled for cover, watched as the ambush Malik had prepared unfolded exactly as planned. Taejin disappeared behind a vehicle, returning fire, but he was outnumbered 3-1. "Stop this," Nayela said, her voice breaking. "Please. Open the vault." "I don't know how." Malik grabbed her mother's hair and yanked her head back, exposing her throat further. "Then figure it out. You have 5 minutes before I start cutting pieces off." Nayela's mind went blank with panic. The vault, Amara's vault. She'd never even seen it. Didn't know where it was, didn't have codes or keys or the lotus pendant. It was still around her neck, the one Teijin had given her before the gala. Nayella's fingers found it automatically. "Where?" she gasped. "Where's the vault?" Malik smiled. "Right beneath your feet." He gestured toward the floor. For the first time, Nayella noticed the pattern in the concrete. Lines that weren't random cracks but deliberate designs. A lotus flower etched into the industrial flooring, so subtle she'd missed it completely. "Stand in the center," Malik ordered. Nayella moved to the center of the lotus pattern. Nothing happened. "The pendant," Malik said impatiently. "Remove it." Nayella's fingers fumbled with the clasp. The pendant fell into her palm. "Now what?" "Now you prove you're really Amar's heir." Malik grabbed her wrist and placed her hand, still holding the pendant, against the floor. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the concrete began to hum, a vibration that traveled up through Nayella's bones. The lotus pattern glowed, faint blue light emanating from circuits hidden beneath layers of concrete. A section of floor began to descend like an elevator. Nayella stumbled backward as it dropped away, revealing a spiral staircase descending into darkness. Malik laughed, delighted and triumphant. 26 years, he breathed. 26 years we've searched for this. He shoved Nayella toward the stairs. "Down! Now!" "What about my mother?" "She stays here. Insurance to make sure you cooperate." He nodded to one of his men, a massive Korean enforcer who moved to stand behind her mother's chair, gun pressed against the base of her skull. "You have 30 minutes to access the vault and return with proof. If you're not back by then, or if you try anything clever, your mother dies." Nayella looked at her mother one last time, the woman who'd supposedly died 12 years ago, the woman who'd let her grieve, the woman she was about to risk everything to save. Their eyes met, and her mother shook her head slowly. "Don't do it." But Nayella was already descending into darkness. The staircase spiraled down at least 3 stories. Emergency lights flickered on automatically as she descended, illuminating steel-reinforced walls and security cameras that had been offline for decades. At the bottom, a massive vault door waited. It looked like something from a bank. Thick steel, complex locking mechanism, biometric scanners dark and dead. Nayella approached it slowly, her reflection warped in the metal surface. She had no idea how to open this. No codes, no keys, just a pendant and desperation. She pressed her hand against the biometric scanner, not expecting anything. It activated. Blue light scanned her palm, her fingerprints, the unique patterns of her skin. A mechanical voice spoke, female, synthesized, cold. "Biological match confirmed. Vale bloodline verified. Identity, Nayella Akachi Vale, granddaughter of Amara Vale. Access granted." The vault door began to open. Massive bolts retracted with mechanical precision. Gears turned. Steel moved aside like a curtain. The interior was revealed. Nayella stepped inside and stopped breathing. The vault was enormous, easily the size of a small warehouse, but it wasn't filled with gold bars or cash or the treasure hoard she'd half expected. Instead, rows of servers hummed quietly in climate-controlled air. Dozens of computer terminals lined the walls. Filing cabinets stretched away into shadows. And in the center, a single desk with a laptop that was still running despite decades underground. This wasn't a treasure vault. This was an intelligence command center. Nayella approached the laptop slowly. The screen was active, displaying a login screen with a single prompt. "Welcome home, Nayella," her grandmother's voice. A recording. It continued automatically. "If you're hearing this, then everything has gone according to plan. You've activated the seal, you found the vault, and you're probably very confused." A pause. "Let me explain what you've inherited." Amara's face appeared on screen, a video recorded in what looked like a tropical location. She looked older than in the photographs, but still sharp, still dangerous, still very much alive. "I didn't build an empire based on violence or drugs or slavery. I built it on information. Every server in this room contains evidence of corruption, blackmail material, financial crimes, and secrets spanning 40 years. Presidents, CEOs, crime lords, generals, all of them in my pocket because I knew what they wanted to hide." Her grandmother smiled. "This is power, Nayella. Real power. The kind that doesn't require armies or weapons. Just knowledge and the willingness to use it." The video continued. "I know you're angry that I disappeared, that I let you think I was dead. But I had no choice. The moment I stepped away from this empire, every enemy I'd ever made would have come for you and your mother. So I hid you both, kept you safe, gave you normal lives. Amar's expression hardened. But safety has an expiration date. Eventually, the world finds you, forces you to choose, and I knew when that happened, you'd need what I built. She leaned closer to the camera. Everything in this vault is yours now. Use it. Protect yourself. Build something better than I did. The video ended. Nayela stood in silence, trying to process what she'd just learned. Her grandmother hadn't abandoned her. She'd been protecting her, preparing her, waiting for the exact moment when Nayela would be desperate enough to claim her inheritance. And Malik had no idea what this vault actually contained. He thought it was money. It was so much worse. Nayela turned to one of the computer terminals and started searching the database. It took less than 5 minutes to find what she needed. Files on Malik Vale, bank accounts, criminal activities, associates, weaknesses, everything Amara had gathered on her own son before disappearing. Nayela downloaded it all onto a flash drive she found in the desk drawer, prepared, waiting, like everything else her grandmother had planned. Then she found something else. Files on Ryu Taijin. Her hands hesitated over the keyboard. She shouldn't look. She should trust him, but something made her click. The files opened. And Nayela's world collapsed. Transaction records. Dated 3 months ago. Massive payment transfers between the Ryu organization and a shell corporation registered in Singapore. Communications between Taijin and someone identified only as the Serpent. Plans, strategies, timelines, all detailing exactly what had happened over the past week. The convenience store encounter, staged. The estate attack, coordinated. The gala appearance, calculated. Every step designed to move Nayela exactly where they needed her, straight to this vault. And there, at the bottom of the files, was the final betrayal. A video conference recording between Taijin and Malik. Nayela clicked play with trembling hands. Taijin's face appeared on screen, his expression cold and businesslike. Malik sat across from him in what looked like a secure meeting room. "The granddaughter will trust you," Malik was saying. "You have the family connection, the honor debt. She'll believe you're protecting her." "And when she opens the vault?" Taijin asked. "We split the contents, 60-40. You get the financial networks. I get the blackmail material and political leverage." Taijin considered this. "And the girl? Becomes a liability once the vault is opened. We eliminate her and her mother. Clean endings." Taijin nodded slowly. "Agreed. But I handle the girl personally. She trusts me. It'll be easier that way." The video ended. Nayela stared at the blank screen. Everything, every kind word, every protective gesture, every moment she'd thought he was helping her. All lies. He'd been moving her toward this vault from the beginning, working with her uncle, planning to kill her the moment she was no longer useful. The kiss in the penthouse suite. Manufactured, just like Jae-hyun's love had been manufactured. Just like everything in her life had been a carefully constructed trap designed to use her and discard her. Nayela's hands shook as she ejected the flash drive. She had evidence now, proof of the betrayal, but she still had to get out of this vault alive. Still had to save her mother, still had to survive men who'd already decided she was dead. She climbed the spiral staircase back toward the surface, the flash drive burning in her pocket like evidence of her own stupidity. When she emerged into the factory floor, Malik was waiting. His expression shifted when he saw her empty hands. "Where is it?" he demanded. "Where's the fortune?" "There is no fortune," Nayela said quietly. "Not the kind you're expecting. Don't lie to me." "I'm not lying. The vault contains intelligence files, blackmail material, information, not cash or gold or anything you can spend." Malik's face darkened with rage. "That's impossible. Amara had billions in offshore accounts, legal investments, shell corporations, not sitting in a vault waiting to be stolen." Nayela pulled out the flash drive. "But I have something better. Evidence on every criminal organization in Seoul, including yours, including your partners." She looked directly at him. "Including Ryu Taejin's betrayal." Malik froze. "What are you talking about?" "I know about your arrangement," Nayela said. "The plan to split the vault contents. The agreement to kill me and my mother once you had what you wanted." She held up the flash drive. "It's all here. Video recordings, financial transfers, Communications between you and Taejin planning this entire operation. Malik's hand moved toward his weapon. Give me that. Why? Nayela asked. So you can destroy the evidence before your partner realizes I know, before I can tell him you were planning to betray him too. She saw the calculation in his eyes, the moment of doubt, and she pressed her advantage. There are files in that vault detailing your every weakness, your offshore accounts, your hidden partners, your plans to double-cross the Ivory Serpent and take complete control once you had the blackmail material. Malik's jaw clenched. You're bluffing. Am I? Nayela started rattling off account numbers, names of shell corporations, dates of transactions. Malik's face went pale. How? My grandmother knew you'd come for this eventually, Nayela said. She prepared for it, documented everything, left it all for me to use. She took a step toward him. So here's my offer. Let my mother go. Walk away. And I won't send these files to every criminal organization and law enforcement agency in Korea. You have no leverage. I have all the leverage. Nayela's voice cracked like a whip. I'm the only one who can access that vault, the only one who can retrieve the files, the only one Amara trusted with the Lotus legacy. She moved closer. Kill me and the vault seals forever. You get nothing. Taejin gets nothing. The Ivory Serpent gets nothing. Malik stared at her, rage and calculation warring across his features. But let me walk out of here with my mother, Nayela continued, and we all survive. You go your way. I go mine. The vault stays sealed. For one long moment, Malik actually seemed to consider it. Then he smiled, and Nayela knew she'd lost. You're right about one thing, he said quietly. My mother did know I'd come eventually. But you're wrong about what she prepared for. He pulled out his phone and showed her a message from Amara, timestamped 2 days ago. When Nayela opens the vault, let her think she has control, then take everything. She's strong enough to survive what comes next. Nayela's blood turned to ice. No, your grandmother didn't leave you the vault to protect you, Malik said softly. She left it as bait, to draw out every enemy she'd ever made, to test whether you were ruthless enough to deserve the Lotus legacy. He gestured toward her mother, including whether you'd sacrifice family to survive. The enforcer behind her mother cocked his weapon. So make your choice, Nayela. The flash drive in your mother's life, or your own survival. Nayela looked at her mother, at the woman who'd let her grieve for 12 years, at the woman who'd chosen safety over truth, at the woman who was still, despite everything, her mother. Their eyes met, and her mother spoke for the first time since Nayela had entered the factory. She trained you for this, she said quietly. Her voice was hoarse, weak, but steady. Your grandmother. She knew this moment would come. Mom, don't choose me, her mother interrupted. Choose survival. Choose power. Choose the future she built for you. Tears streamed down Nayela's face. I can't. Yes, you can. Her mother smiled sadly. I died 12 years ago, remember? This is just making it official. The enforcer pressed his gun harder against her skull. Malik watched with cold fascination. 10 seconds, he said. Choose. Nayela's entire body trembled. Every instinct screamed at her to surrender, to trade the flash drive for her mother's life, to choose love over power. But her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. She's strong enough to survive what comes next. And Taejin's words from days ago. Hesitation kills you faster than bullets. And her own realization, standing in that vault, surrounded by her grandmother's legacy. Power was the only thing that saved people in this world. Not love, not mercy, not sacrifice. Only power. Nayela looked at Malik, then at her mother, then back to Malik. I choose... The factory's main entrance exploded inward. Smoke, fire, chaos. Armed men poured through, not Taejin's people. Different uniforms, different weapons, federal agents, Korean National Police. Everyone on the ground, hands where we can see them. Malik spun toward the entrance, confusion flashing across his face. In the chaos, the enforcer behind Nayela's mother turned his weapon toward the incoming agents. It was the opening Nayela needed. She dove forward, grabbing a piece of rusted pipe from the ground, and swung it with every ounce of strength she had. It connected with the enforcer's temple. He dropped. Nayela grabbed her mother, cutting through the ropes binding her with a jagged piece of metal. Run, she gasped. They ran. Through smoke, and shouting and gunfire that erupted as Malik's men engaged the police. Nayela pulled her mother toward a side exit she'd noticed earlier, a service door half hidden behind abandoned machinery. Behind them, Malik was screaming orders in Korean. They burst through the door into blinding daylight and came face to face with Taejin. He stood 20 meters away, blood streaming from a cut above his eye, his weapon drawn. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Nayela saw the truth written across his face, the recognition that she knew, the calculation of whether he could still salvage this, the decision forming behind his eyes. "Nayela!" he started. She ran, grabbed her mother's hand and ran in the opposite direction, toward the perimeter fence and the street beyond. Behind them, Taejin shouted her name, then gunfire. But Nayela didn't stop, didn't look back. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs gave out, and her mother collapsed against her, both of them gasping for air in an alley 3 blocks from the factory. Sirens wailed in the distance, helicopters thundered overhead, and Nayela stood there, clutching her mother with one hand and the flash drive with the other. She'd escaped. Both of them had escaped. But she'd lost everything else. Taejin's betrayal, Malik's manipulation, Amara's test. She was alone in a city that wanted her dead or controlled, holding evidence that made her the most dangerous woman in Seoul. And she had no idea who to trust, no idea where to go, no idea how to survive what came next. Her mother looked at her with eyes full of recognition. "You look like her now," she whispered, like Amara when she was building her empire. Nayela stared at her own reflection in a broken car window, blood on her face, fire in her eyes, the lotus pendant still around her neck. She didn't look like the woman who'd been thrown out in the rain anymore. She looked like someone who'd burned down the entire city to survive. And maybe that's exactly what her grandmother had wanted. Maybe this was the test. Not whether Nayela would choose her mother over power, but whether she could become someone capable of choosing it all, someone ruthless enough to wield the Lotus legacy, someone willing to sacrifice everything, including her own humanity, to survive. Nayela touched the flash drive in her pocket. Evidence against everyone who'd ever used her, the key to destroying them all, or becoming something worse than any of them. "What do we do now?" her mother asked weakly. Nayela looked at the smoke rising from the factory in the distance, at the city stretched out before them, glittering and indifferent, at the woman beside her who'd chosen safety over truth for 12 years, and she made her decision. "Now," Nayela said quietly. We stopped running. They stopped running in a motel 3 blocks from Gangnam Station, the kind of place where cash worked better than questions, and the owner didn't look up from his phone when Nayela paid for 2 nights. The room smelled like cigarette smoke and cheap disinfectant. Water stains bloomed across the ceiling. The single window overlooked an alley filled with restaurant dumpsters. Perfect. Nobody looked for powerful people in places like this. Nayela locked the door, checked the window locks twice, then helped her mother onto the bed. Up close, in harsh fluorescent light, the damage was worse than she'd thought. Bruises covered her mother's arms in handprint patterns. Her left eye was swollen, nearly shut. She moved like every breath hurt. "We need to get you to a hospital," Nayela said. "No hospitals." Her mother's voice was firm despite its weakness. "They'll have people watching, waiting for us to surface. You need medical attention. I need to stay alive more." Her mother grabbed Nayela's wrist with surprising strength. "Listen to me. Malik didn't just beat me for information. He was asking about Amar's contingency protocols, security systems, fail-safes she built into the vault access." "What kind of fail-safes?" "I don't know. Your grandmother never told me everything, but Malik seemed convinced that opening the vault the way you did triggered something, some kind of alert or countdown." Nayela's blood ran cold. She pulled out the flash drive, staring at it like it might explode. "Why didn't you tell me this at the factory?" "Because I needed you to open it anyway. It was the only leverage we had." Her mother coughed, wet and painful. "But now we need to figure out what you activated before it destroys us both." Nayela found a laptop in her backpack. Burner device Taejin had given her days ago. She hesitated before powering it on, wondering if he could track it, decided she didn't care anymore. The laptop booted up. She inserted the flash drive. 30 seconds of loading. Then files exploded across the screen, thousands of them. Decades of intelligence gathering compressed into searchable databases. Nayela clicked through folders at random, her stomach churning with each revelation. Video surveillance of a senator accepting bribes. bank transfers linking a major corporation to North Korean weapons dealers, photographs of a Supreme Court justice with someone definitely not his wife. Her grandmother had been a spider at the center of Seoul's web, collecting every secret that moved through the city. And now Nayela held all of it. There, her mother said, pointing at a folder marked Contingency Protocols. Nayela opened it. Inside was a video file time-stamped for today's date. Her grandmother's face appeared on screen. The same tropical location, but this recording was different, urgent. Nayela, if you're watching this, then you've opened the vault and triggered the final protocol. You have 72 hours before every file in this database uploads automatically to law enforcement agencies, media outlets, and intelligence services across Asia. Amar's expression was grave. This is your inheritance. Not the blackmail material itself, but the choice of what to do with it. You can use these files to build power the way I did, controlling people through their secrets. Or you can burn it all down and let the truth destroy everyone. She leaned closer to the camera. But understand this. The moment those files go public, you become the most wanted woman in Korea. Every person documented in this database will hunt you. Every criminal organization will want you dead. Every government will want you silenced. Her grandmother's smile was cold. So choose wisely, granddaughter. Build an empire or start a war. Either way, you'll finally understand what it means to be a Veil. The video ended. Nayela stared at the countdown timer that appeared. 68 hours, 42 minutes, and 17 seconds. 68 hours until automatic upload. 68 hours to decide whether to become her grandmother or destroy her legacy entirely. She's insane, Nayela whispered. She's testing you, her mother corrected. Again, always testing. Her mother shifted on the bed, pain flickering across her face. When I was your age, she did something similar to me. Put me in an impossible situation and watched to see how I'd react, whether I'd choose power or safety. What did you choose? Safety. I chose you. Chose to let her fake my death and hide me away rather than stay in Seoul and fight for my place in her empire. Her mother's voice dropped. And I've regretted it every day since. Nayela turned to look at her. You regret choosing me. I regret choosing fear, her mother said quietly. I could have been powerful. Could have stood beside your grandmother and helped build something extraordinary. Instead, I hid. Told myself it was for your protection, but really it was because I was terrified. She met Nayela's eyes. Don't make my mistake. Don't let fear turn you into someone who watches from the shadows while others decide your fate. Before Nayela could respond, her burner phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered without speaking. Nayela. Taejin's voice. Calm. Controlled. We need to talk, Calm. Go to hell. I know you saw the files. I know what you think happened. I know what did happen, Nayela said, her voice shaking with rage. You used me. You and Malik planned this from the beginning. Some of that's true, Taejin admitted, but not all of it. Which part? The part where you pretended to protect me? Or the part where you agreed to kill me once I opened the vault? Silence on the other end. Then, meet me. Let me explain. So you can finish what you started? If I wanted you dead, you'd already be dead. His voice was flat. The federal raid on the factory wasn't random. I called it in. I made sure you had an escape route. Nayela's grip tightened on the phone. Why? Because somewhere between the convenience store and the gala, the plan changed. You changed it. Taejin's voice dropped. Meet me at the Lotus Garden in Bukchon. 1 hour. Come alone or bring your mother. I don't care. But if you want to survive what's coming, you need to hear what I have to say. He hung up. Nayela stood there, phone pressed against her ear, listening to dead air. Her mother watched her carefully. Are you going? I don't know. He betrayed you. Maybe. Or maybe he's telling the truth about changing the plan. Does it matter? Her mother asked. Even if he developed genuine feelings, he still started by using you. That doesn't go away. Nayela thought about Taejin's kiss in the penthouse, the way he'd looked at her during training, the moments that had felt real even when everything else was lies. No, she said quietly. It doesn't go away. But she was already grabbing her jacket. Stay here. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except me. Nayela, I need answers, and he's the only one who can give them to me. She left before her mother could argue further. The Lotus Garden was a traditional Korean tea house hidden in Bukchon's winding alleys. Nayela had never been there, but her phone's GPS guided her through narrow streets until she found it, a wooden structure with curved roof tiles and paper lanterns glowing softly in the dusk. No guards visible, no obvious ambush, just a quiet building and the sound of water trickling from a nearby fountain. Nayela checked the knife she'd stolen from the motel's kitchen. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. She pushed through the entrance. Inside, the tea house was empty except for one person. Tae-jin sat at a low table near the back, 2 cups of tea already poured. He looked different, tired. The cut above his eye from the factory had been cleaned but not stitched. His suit jacket was gone, replaced by a simple black shirt. No visible weapons. He didn't stand when she entered. "Thank you for coming," he said. Nayela stayed near the door, escape route clear. "You have 5 minutes. Talk." Tae-jin gestured toward the empty cushion across from him. "Please, sit." "I'll stand." He nodded slowly, accepting that. "The plan to use you was real," he began. "Malik approached me 3 months ago with intelligence about Amara's granddaughter living in Seoul. He'd been tracking you for years, waiting for the right moment to make contact. So you agreed to help him?" "I agreed to explore the opportunity," Tae-jin corrected. "Your grandmother's vault was legendary in our world. The idea of accessing it was worth investigating." "Worth using me for?" "Yes." No hesitation, no apology. "That was the original plan. Stage an encounter. Gain your trust, position you to activate the seal and open the vault." He picked up his teacup but didn't drink. "But I made a mistake." "What mistake?" "I underestimated you." Tae-jin's voice was quiet. "I expected someone soft, broken, easy to manipulate. Instead, I found someone who looked at men with guns surrounding her and asked how to survive rather than begging for mercy." He set down the cup. "You reminded me why I fell in love with this world in the first place, not the violence or the money. The pure distilled will to power that some people carry in their bones." "So you developed feelings," Nayela said flatly. "How touching. Doesn't change the fact that you were planning to kill me." "I was," Tae-jin agreed. "Until the night at the gala when you faced down your ex-husband and his entire family without flinching. That's when I realized something." "What?" "That killing you would be the stupidest thing I'd ever done. Because you weren't just Amara's heir. You were someone capable of building your own empire if given the chance." He stood slowly, hands visible and empty. "So I changed the plan, called in the federal raid to give you an escape route, made sure Malik's attention was divided, created chaos you could use." "And now what?" Nayela demanded. "Now you want me to trust you, forgive you, fall into your arms because you had a change of heart?" "No," Tae-jin said. "Now I want to offer you a partnership." He pulled out a tablet and showed her a news broadcast. The factory raid was headline news. Multiple arrests, several dead, including known associates of the Ivory Serpents organization. Malik Vale, captured and being held pending charges. "Your uncle is finished," Tae-jin said, "but the Ivory Serpent isn't. He's still out there, still hunting you, still determined to claim what your grandmother left behind." "Let him hunt." "He won't stop," Tae-jin pressed. "Not until you're dead or he has access to the vault. And you can't run forever." "So what are you suggesting?" Tae-jin's smile was sharp. "We use the countdown. 68 hours until those files go public. We leverage that deadline to force the serpent into the open. Make him come to us on our terms. And then? Then we kill him, take control of his organization, use your grandmother's intelligence network and my family's infrastructure to build something neither of us could create alone." He stepped closer. "You have the information. I have the muscle. Together, we could own Seoul within 6 months." Nayela studied his face, looking for the lie. "Why should I believe anything you say?" "Because I'm not asking you to trust me," Tae-jin replied. "I'm asking you to use me. Take what I'm offering and watch me like a hawk. The moment I betray you again, you have files that can destroy my entire organization." He gestured toward her pocket where the flash drive sat. "Mutually assured destruction, the only honest partnership our world allows." Nayela wanted to refuse, wanted to walk away and figure this out alone. But her mother's words echoed in her mind. "Don't let fear turn you into someone who watches from the shadows." And her grandmother's. "Build an empire or start a war." "One condition," Nayela said. "Name it." "My mother walks away from this. Clean exit, new identity. Somewhere safe where none of this ever touches her again. Taejin nodded. Done. I'll have my people arrange it within 24 hours. And if you're lying, then you release every file you have on me and watch my empire burn, Taejin finished. I'm aware of the stakes. He extended his hand. Partners? Nayela looked at his hand for a long moment. Then she took it. Partners. But cross me again and I'll make sure your death is the headline that destroys your family's legacy forever. Taejin's smile was genuine this time. I'd expect nothing less. They spent the next hour planning. Taejin pulled up intelligence on the Ivory Serpent's known operations, warehouses, front businesses, shell corporations. The man was careful, operating through dozens of layers of insulation, but he had a weakness: pride. He built his reputation on being untouchable, Taejin explained. For 20 years, he's operated in shadows while everyone else fought for territory in the open. He thinks that makes him smarter. And pride makes people stupid. If we offer him something he can't refuse, direct access to the vault files before they go public, he'll surface. You want to use me as bait. I want to use us both as bait, Taejin corrected. He thinks we're enemies now, thinks the partnership between me and Malik fell apart at the factory. We let him think that. Make him believe you're alone and desperate. Then what? Then we turn the meeting into an ambush, my people, your leverage, his arrogance. Taejin's voice was cold. We end this permanently. Nayela should have felt afraid, should have hesitated. Instead, she felt something else entirely. Anticipation, the same feeling she'd had when she'd first grabbed Mira during training and pulled instead of blocking, the feeling of fighting back. How do we contact him? She asked. Taejin smiled. We don't. We make him contact us. He pulled up a private encrypted forum used by Seoul's underworld, the digital equivalent of neutral ground where deals were brokered and information traded. His fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. Within seconds, he'd posted a message. Lotus Vault accessed. Files available for negotiation. Highest bidder. 48 hours. That'll get his attention, Taejin said. Now we wait. They didn't have to wait long. 20 minutes later, a private message appeared. Interesting offer. Meet me at the Namsan Pavilion. Midnight. You and the Veil Girl. No weapons, no backup. Just conversation between reasonable people. Taejin showed Nayela the message. It's a trap, she said immediately. Obviously, but it's also an opportunity. To get killed. To control the circumstances, Taejin countered. He picked the location because it's public, exposed, hard to stage an ambush, which means he's planning something we're not seeing. So we don't go. We go. But we bring our own surprises. Taejin made 3 phone calls in rapid Korean. When he finished, he turned back to Nayela. Done. I'll have snipers positioned on every building with line of sight to the pavilion. Extraction teams ready in 4 different locations. And a backup plan that'll make him regret ever hearing the name Veil. What's the backup plan? Taejin's smile was vicious. If anything goes wrong, we upload every file immediately. Burn down the entire criminal infrastructure of Seoul. Everyone loses. Including us. Including us, he agreed. Which is why it's a good deterrent. Nayela checked her phone. 6 hours until midnight. 6 hours to prepare for a confrontation that would either end this or end her. She thought about her mother waiting in the motel room, thought about calling to say goodbye just in case, decided against it. If this went wrong, goodbyes wouldn't matter anyway. I need to get ready, she said. My people will bring you equipment, body armor, communication devices, weapons if you want them. I want them. Taejin nodded approval. You're learning. I had good teachers, Nayela said. Brutal ones. She stood to leave, then paused. If this is another betrayal. It's not, Taejin interrupted. But if you need insurance, take this. He handed her a phone, different from the burner she'd been using. Speed dial 1 connects directly to my head of security. Speed dial 2 uploads all vault files immediately. Speed dial 3 triggers the extraction teams. He met her eyes. Control. That's what you need to survive tonight. Not trust. Control. Nayela took the phone. See you at midnight. She left the tea house and made her way back to the motel through darkening streets. Her mother was asleep when she entered, exhausted from trauma and pain. Nayela sat beside the bed, watching her breathe. 12 years of believing this woman was dead. 12 years of grief that had shaped every decision she'd made. And now she was about to risk everything, including this fragile reunion, to claim power she'd never asked for. Her mother's eyes opened. "You went to meet him?" "Yes." "And?" "And we're either about to destroy the ivory serpent or get destroyed trying." Her mother struggled to sit up. "Nayela, I need you to leave Seoul," Nayela interrupted. "Tonight. Taejin's people will take you somewhere safe. New identity, new life. Somewhere this world can never touch you again." "I'm not leaving you." "Yes, you are." Nayela's voice was firm. "Because if I die tonight, I need to know you survived, that some part of our family made it out." Her mother's eyes filled with tears. "I already lost 12 years with you. I'm not losing more." "You don't have a choice." Nayela stood and called the number Taejin had given her. Within 30 minutes, 2 women arrived, professional, armed, efficient. They helped Nayela's mother to her feet despite her protests. "Where are you taking me?" her mother demanded. "Tokyo first," one of the women said in English. "Then we'll see." Her mother looked at Nayela one last time. "Don't die trying to be like her. Amar's legacy isn't worth your life." "Maybe not," Nayela said quietly, "but it's worth fighting for the choice." They took her mother away. The motel room felt emptier than it should have. Nayela sat on the bed and opened the laptop again, scrolling through her grandmother's files. So many secrets. So much power compressed into data. And in 72 hours, all of it would be public unless she stopped it. The question was, did she want to stop it? Her phone buzzed. Taejin's people had arrived with equipment. Nayela spent the next 3 hours preparing. They fitted her with body armor thin enough to hide under clothing. Gave her a weapon. Compact pistol with 2 spare magazines. Communication device disguised as an earring. Tracking beacon sewn into her jacket lining. The woman who armed her was Mira, the same one who'd beaten the softness out of her during training. "You've improved," Mira said, checking the fit of the body armor. "I had motivation." "Good. You'll need it tonight." Mira's expression was serious. The ivory serpent doesn't meet people in person unless he's absolutely certain he'll win. Whatever he's planning, it won't be a simple conversation. "I know." "Do you?" Mira grabbed Nayela's shoulders, forcing eye contact. "Because knowing and being ready are different things. When bullets start flying and people start dying, your training disappears. All that's left is instinct." "So what should my instinct be?" "Survival," Mira said flatly. "Not honor, not revenge. Just staying alive long enough to win." She stepped back. "Mr. Ryu cares about you. I don't know why, but he does. So don't make me explain to him why I let you walk into an ambush unprepared." "I won't." Mira nodded once and left. Nayela checked her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Black tactical clothing, body armor invisible beneath, weapon secured at her hip, hair pulled back tight. She looked like someone who could kill you. Maybe she was. At 11:30, Taejin's car arrived. He sat in the back, dressed similarly to her, dark clothing, no visible weapons, the kind of outfit designed to blend into shadows. "Ready?" he asked as she slid in beside him. "No?" "Good. Overconfidence gets you killed." The drive to Namsan took 20 minutes through Seoul's glittering nightscape. They didn't speak, didn't need to. The plan was simple. Meet the serpent, negotiate in bad faith, wait for him to reveal his hand, then spring the trap. Simple didn't mean easy. The car dropped them 3 blocks from the pavilion. They walked the rest of the way, Taejin's hand resting lightly against the small of her back. The gesture looked protective to outside observers. Really, it was tactical positioning, keeping her close enough to shield if shooting started. The Namsan Pavilion sat on a hill overlooking Seoul's sprawling cityscape. Traditional Korean architecture illuminated by soft lights. Tourist attraction by day, abandoned by night. Perfect neutral ground. Or perfect killing ground, depending on perspective. They climbed the stone steps slowly. At the top, a man waited. He stood with his back to them, staring out at Seoul's lights. Tall, lean, silver hair despite what looked like a relatively young frame, maybe 50 at most. He turned as they approached, and Nayela's breath caught. She knew that face, not personally, but from photographs in her grandmother's files. "Marcus Chen," Taejin said quietly, "also known as the Ivory Serpent." Marcus smiled, warm and charming, and completely at odds with his reputation. Ryu Taijin and the infamous Nayela Vale. What an honor. His English carried a slight British accent, refined and educated. Thank you for meeting me on such short notice. Let's skip the pleasantries, Taijin said. You wanted to talk about the vault files. Talk. Marcus gestured towards stone benches arranged around the pavilion. Please, sit. We're civilized people. We can discuss this like adults. Nobody sat. Marcus sighed. Very well, standing it is. He clasped his hands behind his back. I want the files. All of them. In exchange, I'll guarantee your safety and a generous financial arrangement. We're not selling, Nayela said. Everything's for sale, Ms. Vale. It's just a matter of price. Not this. Marcus studied her with interest. You sound like your grandmother. Same stubborn refusal to see reason. You knew her? Knew her? Marcus laughed. I loved her. We were partners for 7 years before she disappeared. The revelation hit Nayela like a punch. That's impossible. Is it? Marcus pulled out his phone and showed her a photograph. A younger version of Amara sitting beside a younger Marcus at some upscale restaurant. They were laughing, his arm around her shoulders. They looked happy. Your grandmother and I built half that empire together, Marcus said softly. Then one day she decided I was too dangerous, too ambitious, too willing to cross lines she'd drawn for herself. His expression hardened, so she vanished, took everything we'd built and disappeared without a word, left me to deal with the enemies she'd made, the promises she'd broken. And now you want revenge, Taijin said. Now I want what's mine, Marcus corrected. 50% of that vault's contents belong to me. I earned them, bled for them, built them alongside her. He looked at Nayela. I'm not your enemy, Ms. Vale. I'm your family's oldest friend trying to collect a debt. By kidnapping my mother? By working with Malik? By using the tools available, Marcus said calmly. Your uncle was convenient, angry enough to be useful, stupid enough to be controlled. He smiled. Rather like you and Mr. Ryu, I imagine. Taijin's hand moved toward his concealed weapon. Marcus noticed but didn't react. Before this becomes violent, let me show you something. He pulled out a tablet and turned it toward them. The screen showed live security camera footage. Multiple locations. Nayela's mother being loaded into a vehicle by Taijin's people. The motel room they'd stayed in. The tea house where they'd planned earlier. I've been watching you both all day, Marcus said pleasantly. Every move, every conversation, every desperate plan you thought was clever. He swiped through images. Your mother is currently en route to Tokyo, or she would be, except my people have already intercepted the vehicle. She's safe. For now, depending on how this conversation ends. Nayela's blood turned to ice. You're lying. Am I? Marcus made a call. Put her on. After a moment, her mother's voice came through the speaker. Nayela? Nayela, they stopped the car and the call cut off. Marcus pocketed his phone. So here's the real negotiation. You give me the files. All of them, plus access to the vault itself. In exchange, your mother lives. You live. Mr. Ryu lives. Everyone walks away. And if we refuse, Taijin asked, then I start uploading the files myself, selectively. Just enough to destroy your organization first, Mr. Ryu. Then Nayela's reputation. Then anyone else who's inconvenienced me. Marcus's smile vanished. Your grandmother thought she was smarter than everyone. Thought she could control the game by controlling information, but information is only powerful if people fear its release. Once it's public, it's just noise. He stepped closer. So make your choice. Partner with me and profit, or resist and watch everything burn. Nayela felt Taijin tense beside her, felt her own heartbeat hammering against the body armor, felt the weight of the flash drive in her pocket, and she made her decision. No, she said quietly. Marcus raised an eyebrow. No? No deal. No partnership. No surrender. She pulled out the flash drive and held it up. You want Amara's legacy? Here it is. Every file, every secret, every piece of leverage she spent 40 years collecting. Nayela walked to the edge of the pavilion. And I'm going to destroy it. She held the flash drive over the hillside, ready to throw it into the darkness below. Stop! Marcus's composure cracked. You have no idea what you're doing. Those files are worth nothing, Nayela interrupted. They're worth nothing if I'm not willing to use them. And I'm not willing to become another person who controls others through fear and blackmail. She met his eyes. My grandmother built an empire on secrets. I'm going to end it by telling the truth. She threw the flash drive. It arced through the air and disappeared into the dark hillside below. For one frozen moment, nobody moved. Then Marcus smiled, not angry, amused. Well played, Ms. Vale. Truly. He pulled out a different phone. But did you really think there was only one copy? He showed her the screen, the same files, the same database, all of it backed up on his personal server. Your grandmother was thorough, Marcus said. Every time someone accessed the vault, it automatically created a backup. I've had copies of everything since the moment you triggered the opening sequence. Nayela's world tilted. No. Yes, Marcus said. So now we're back to the original question. Do you want to partner with me, or do you want to watch everyone you care about suffer? Taejin moved. Fast. His weapon appeared in his hand, aimed directly at Marcus's head. Third option, he said coldly. I kill you here and deal with whatever consequences come. Marcus didn't flinch. Pull that trigger and my people release every file immediately. You'll be dead within 72 hours. Everyone you've ever protected, every deal you've brokered, every secret you've kept, all of it public. Maybe that's acceptable, Taejin replied. Is it? Marcus looked at Nayela. Is that acceptable to you, Ms. Vale? Watching Seoul burn because you refuse to compromise? Nayela's mind raced. No good options, no clean solutions, just different flavors of destruction. She thought about her mother in a vehicle somewhere, surrounded by Marcus's people. Thought about Taejin's empire built over generations. Thought about her grandmother's 40 years of careful work. And she thought about the woman she'd been 2 weeks ago, soft, broken, thrown away like garbage. That woman would have surrendered, would have traded herself for others' safety, would have chosen to be a victim one more time. But that woman was dead. Nayela walked up to Marcus until they were inches apart. You want a partnership? She asked quietly. Yes? Then here's my counteroffer. She pulled out the phone Taejin had given her. Speed dial 2, upload all files immediately. Her thumb hovered over the button. We upload everything. Every file, every secret, every piece of leverage anyone in this room has ever used. We burn down the entire corrupt system and build something new from the ashes. Marcus's eyes widened. You're bluffing. Am I? Nayela smiled. You said information is only powerful if people fear its release, so let's find out what happens when there's nothing left to fear. You'll destroy yourself. I'll destroy everyone, Nayela corrected, including you, including my grandmother's legacy, including everything that's turned this city into a war zone. She pressed her thumb down, not on speed dial 2, on speed dial 3, extraction teams. Around the pavilion, figures emerged from shadows, not Marcus's people, Taejin's. Dozens of them, moving with military precision, weapons trained on every exit. Marcus spun, realizing too late that he'd been outmaneuvered. When? He demanded. While you were monologuing, Taejin said. Nayela kept you talking. My people moved into position, and now you're surrounded. Marcus's jaw clenched. I still have the files. You can still die, Nayela interrupted. Or you can tell me where my mother is and maybe walk out of here. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Marcus's face. If you kill me, my organization will collapse within a week, Taejin finished. You've built everything around your personal control. No clear succession, no distributed power structure, just your ego holding it all together. He smiled coldly. We've done our research too. Marcus looked between them, calculating odds, assessing options, coming up empty. Your mother is in a warehouse in Incheon, he said finally. Pier 7. She's unharmed. Prove it. Marcus made a call, spoke briefly in Mandarin, then handed the phone to Nayela. Her mother's voice came through. Nayela? What's happening? Are you hurt? No, but there are men with guns and... Stay calm. I'm sending people to get you. Nayela handed the phone back to Marcus. Then she nodded to Taejin. He made a gesture. His people moved in, securing Marcus with practiced efficiency. The ivory serpent didn't resist, just smiled bitterly. Your grandmother would be proud, he said to Nayela. Ruthless to the end. I'm nothing like her. Aren't you? Marcus laughed as they dragged him away. You just played a perfect hand using fear and leverage and manipulation. That's exactly what Amara would have done. He called back over his shoulder. Welcome to the family business, Ms. Vale. Then he was gone. Taejin and Nayela stood alone in the pavilion while cleanup teams worked around them. "It's done," Taejin said quietly. "Is it?" Nayela's voice shook. "My mother's still in danger. Marcus still has file backups. And we just started a war with whoever's left of his organization." "All true. So what do we do now?" Taejin turned to face her fully. "Now we finish it. We retrieve your mother. We hunt down Marcus's backups. We eliminate anyone who might seek revenge." He stepped closer. "And then we decide what kind of empire we want to build from the ruins." Nayela looked out at Seoul spreading below them, millions of lights, millions of people, all of them unaware that their city's underworld had just shifted beneath their feet. "I don't want an empire," she said. "Then what do you want?" Nayela thought about her grandmother's vault, about 40 years of secrets and manipulation, about power built on fear, about everything she'd almost become. "I want to burn it all down," she said quietly. "Every file, every backup, every piece of leverage anyone has over anyone else." She turned to Taejin. "And then I want to disappear before someone else tries to use me." "They'll hunt you forever." "Let them try." Taejin studied her face for a long moment. Then he smiled, genuine and almost sad. "You really are like her, not in the ways Marcus thinks, but in the ways that matter." "What ways?" "The willingness to sacrifice everything for a principle." He pulled out his phone and made a call. "Extract the mother. Secure all known backup locations. Prepare for full scorched earth protocol." When he hung up, he looked at Nayela. "If we're doing this, we're doing it right. No half measures. We destroy everything and make sure it stays destroyed. And then? Then you get your clean exit, new identity, new life. Somewhere this world can never find you." "What about you?" Taejin's smile turned sharp. "I'll stay and manage the aftermath. Make sure no one comes looking for you." "Why would you do that?" He reached out and touched her face, gentle, despite the violence surrounding them. "Because somewhere between the convenience store and right now, I stopped seeing you as a tool and started seeing you as someone worth protecting." "That's not good enough." "I know," Taejin said, "but it's all I have." He kissed her. Not like before. This kiss felt like goodbye. When they broke apart, Nayela's phone buzzed. Message from the extraction team. "Mother secured. No injuries. En route to safe house." Relief flooded through her so intense it felt like drowning. "She's safe," she whispered. "Good," Taejin replied. "Now, let's finish this." They descended from the pavilion together, side by side, while Seoul glittered below like a promise or a threat. And Nayela realized something. She wasn't the broken woman thrown out in the rain anymore. She wasn't the scared girl who'd thought love would save her. She wasn't even the desperate heir trying to claim her grandmother's legacy. She was someone new entirely. Someone forged in betrayal and violence and impossible choices. Someone capable of burning down empires if that's what survival required. And as they drove through Seoul's midnight streets toward whatever came next, Nayela felt something she hadn't felt in years. Power. Not the kind her grandmother had wielded through secrets and fear, but the kind that came from knowing exactly who you were and what you were willing to fight for. The kind that made her dangerous. The countdown continued. 48 hours until automatic upload. 48 hours to destroy every backup. 48 hours to end her grandmother's legacy forever. Or become it. The choice was finally completely hers. The warehouse in Incheon smelled like salt water and rust and old violence. Nayela stood outside Pier 7 with Taejin beside her, and 20 armed men fanned out in tactical positions. Dawn was still 2 hours away. The only light came from flickering dock lamps and the distant glow of container ships moving through the harbor. Her mother was inside. So were the last of Marcus Chen's people, cornered, desperate, and probably willing to die rather than surrender. "We can wait them out," Taejin said quietly. "Cut power, block exits, force them to negotiate." "How long would that take?" "Hours. Maybe a full day." Nayela shook her head. "Every hour we wait is another hour Marcus's people have to activate backup plans. We end this now." Taejin studied her face in the dim light. "You understand what that means? Going in hard against entrenched fighters, protecting a hostage? It means people die." "Yes." "Then let's make sure it's not us." Taejin pulled out his phone and relayed orders in clipped Korean. His people moved into position with silent efficiency, covering every exit, setting up firing lanes, preparing for the kind of violence that left permanent marks on everyone involved. Mira appeared beside them, checking her weapon with mechanical precision. Thermal imaging shows 6 bodies inside, she reported. 5 clustered near the center, 1 separated, likely your mother. Defenses? Basic. They weren't expecting to hold this position long, but desperate people are unpredictable. Mira met Nayela's eyes. You should wait outside. Let us handle extraction. No. This isn't training anymore. Real bullets don't care about your character development. I know, Nayela said, but she's my mother. If something goes wrong, I need to be there. Mira looked at Taejin. He nodded once. Stay behind me, Mira ordered. Do exactly what I say when I say it. And if I tell you to run, you run. Understand? Yes. They moved toward the warehouse entrance. Mira first, then Nayela, then Taejin with 2 more fighters flanking them. The door was unlocked. Amateur hour. Or a trap. Probably both. Inside, the warehouse stretched away into darkness broken only by emergency lighting. Shipping containers stacked 3 high created a maze of passages and dead ends. Water dripped somewhere in the distance. The sound echoed off metal walls. Perfect ambush terrain. They moved slowly, weapons up, checking every corner. Nayela's heart hammered so hard she thought everyone could hear it. Sweat soaked through her shirt beneath the body armor despite the cold air. Her hands trembled around the pistol Mira had given her. A voice echoed from somewhere ahead. Korean. Male. Shouting something that sounded like a demand. Taejin responded in the same language. Calm, measured, negotiating. The conversation went back and forth for 30 seconds. Then Taejin turned to Nayela. They want to trade. Your mother for safe passage out of Korea. Do we have safe passage to offer? No, but we can pretend. And when they realize we're lying, they'll start shooting, Taejin said flatly. Which is why we position people to take them out the moment your mother is clear. It was a plan built on timing and luck, and the willingness to kill people who were already dying anyway. Nayela nodded. Do it. Taejin relayed instructions. His people melted into shadows, finding positions among the shipping containers. Then they waited. The Korean voice called out again. Taejin responded. After a moment, figures emerged from between containers. 5 men, just like thermal imaging had shown, 4 of them armed. The 5th dragging Nayela's mother between them, hands bound, cloth gag in her mouth, eyes wide with fear. Nayela's finger tightened on her trigger. Mira's hand caught her wrist. Not yet, she whispered. Wait for the signal. The men moved closer, 20 meters, 5, 10. Nayela could see her mother's face clearly now, bruised, terrified, but alive. The lead man shouted something in Korean. Taejin gestured toward the warehouse exit. Your transportation is waiting outside. Release the woman and walk away. Show us first, the man demanded in accented English. Taejin made a gesture. One of his people appeared at the exit, visible through the open door. The Korean men relaxed slightly. That's when Nayela saw it. The lead man's hand moving towards something at his belt. Not a weapon. A detonator. They're wired, she screamed. Everything happened at once. Mira shoved Nayela behind a container. Taejin's people opened fire. The lead man pressed the detonator. Explosions tore through the warehouse, not massive, not enough to bring down the building, but enough to create chaos. Smoke, fire, metal fragments spinning through the air like shrapnel. Nayela's ears rang. Her vision blurred. Someone was screaming, maybe her mother, maybe everyone. She stumbled out from behind the container, searching desperately through the smoke. Bodies on the ground, some moving, some not. Her mother. Where was her mother? Nayela, Taejin's voice cutting through the chaos. Get down, she dropped instinctively. Bullets tore through the space where her head had been seconds before. One of the Korean men was still alive, wounded, bleeding, but firing wildly. Taejin put 3 rounds in him. The shooting stopped. Silence pressed down like a physical weight, broken only by crackling flames and labored breathing. Nayela pushed herself up, found her mother 15 feet away, curled against a container, coughing but alive. She ran, dropped to her knees beside her mother, and pulled the gag away. Mom, look at me. Are you hurt? Her mother's eyes focused slowly. Nayela? I'm here. I've got you. She cut through the rope binding her mother's wrists with shaking hands. Behind them, Taejin was coordinating with his people, checking casualties, securing the warehouse, making sure nothing else was rigged to explode. Mira appeared, blood streaming from a cut on her forehead, but otherwise intact. "We need to move," she said. "This much noise will bring police within minutes." Nayela helped her mother stand. They stumbled toward the exit together, leaving dead men and burning wreckage behind. Outside, the pre-dawn air felt impossibly clean after the smoke and cordite. Vehicles waited in shadows. They loaded Nayela's mother into the back of an SUV with a medical team already waiting. "Take her to the Busan safe house," Taejian ordered. "Maximum security. No one gets near her without my authorization." The vehicle pulled away. Nayela watched it disappear into the darkness, feeling something inside her chest finally unclench. Her mother was alive. Safe. Gone. Taejian's hand found her shoulder. "You did well." "People died." "Yes. Because of me." "Because of choices made years before you were born," Taejian corrected. "You just inherited the consequences." Nayela turned to look at him. "Is that supposed to make it easier?" "No, nothing makes it easier. You just learn to carry the weight." They drove back to Seoul in silence while the sun rose behind them, painting the sky in shades of gold and blood. The safe house Taejian brought her to was different from the motel. Upscale apartment in a secured building with armed guards and surveillance that could spot a threat 3 blocks away. Nayela collapsed onto a couch that probably cost more than her old apartment's entire furnishings. Taejian sat across from her. "Marcus Chen is being transferred to a secure location," he said. "My people are interrogating him about backup locations for the vault files." "Will he talk?" "Eventually. Everyone talks with the right motivation." Taejian leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "But there's something you need to understand. Even if we destroy every backup Marcus made, we can't destroy the knowledge. People know the vault exists, know what it contains. They'll keep searching for it." "So what do? We give them something else to search for." He pulled out a laptop and showed her a video file. Nayela's grandmother appeared on screen, another recording, another message from beyond the grave. "Nayela, if you're watching this, then you've decided to destroy my legacy rather than inherit it. Part of me is disappointed, but a larger part is proud." Amara smiled. "I built an empire on secrets because I believed information was the only true power. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe the real power is in deciding what secrets deserve to exist at all." She leaned closer to the camera. "There's a final protocol I never told anyone about. Not Marcus, not your mother, not even the few people I trusted most. It's designed to do exactly what you're trying to do, destroy the vault and everything in it permanently." Amara's expression grew serious. "But there's a cost. Activating this protocol will erase not just the files, but every trace that they ever existed, every backup, every copy, every fragment of code. It will burn through my entire digital infrastructure like a virus and leave nothing behind." She paused. "It will also release a dead man's switch that sends sanitized evidence of the worst crimes in those files to appropriate authorities. Not the blackmail material, not the leverage, just proof of genuine atrocities that deserve prosecution." Her grandmother's eyes locked onto the camera. "Some secrets protect the guilty. Those deserve to die. But some secrets protect the innocent. Those deserve to live. This protocol tries to separate them. It won't be perfect, but it's better than keeping all of it, or destroying all of it." She gave instructions, access codes, activation sequences, failsafes. The video ended. Nayela sat in silence, processing. "She knew," she whispered. "She knew I'd try to destroy it." "Your grandmother was many things," Taejian said quietly, "but she wasn't stupid. She understood that power built on fear eventually collapses, so she built an exit strategy. For me. For whoever had the courage to use it." Nayela looked at the laptop, at the codes and sequences that would end 40 years of her grandmother's work. "If I do this, what happens to you?" "Some of my organization's activities are documented in those files," Taejian admitted. "The protocol will likely expose them. I'll face investigations, possible prosecution. My family's empire will be damaged. And you're okay with that?" "I'm alive," Taejian said. "My father used to tell me that the only unforgivable sin in our world was getting caught with no way out. If I lose everything but keep breathing, I can rebuild." He met her eyes. "The question is, are you okay with that? Destroying my life along with everyone else's?" Nayela thought about it. About Taejian's betrayal that had turned into something else. About his protection that had saved her life multiple times. about the kiss that had felt real even when everything else was lies. I don't want to destroy you, she said quietly, but you will anyway, because it's the right thing to do. It wasn't a question. Nayela nodded slowly. I'm sorry. Don't be, Tejin replied. You're choosing principle over convenience. That's rare in our world. Probably why I fell for you in the first place. The admission hung between them. Tejin, don't, he interrupted. Don't say you feel the same way or that this could have worked under different circumstances. We both know it couldn't have. He stood and walked to the window, staring out at Seoul's morning skyline. You're going to disappear after this. New identity, new life. Somewhere I can't find you even if I wanted to. Yes. Good. He turned back to face her. That's how I know you'll survive, because you understand that love doesn't save people in our world. Distance does. Disappearing does. Becoming someone else entirely does. Taejin crossed the room and kissed her one last time. It tasted like goodbye and regret and all the futures they'd never have. When he pulled away, his expression was carefully neutral again. I'll give you privacy to activate the protocol. My people will provide extraction once it's done. You'll be on a plane to Vancouver within 6 hours. Vancouver? Canadian immigration is easier to navigate with the right documentation. From there, you can go anywhere. Be anyone. He moved toward the door. Taejin, Nayela called. He paused without turning around. Thank you for everything, even the betrayals. Especially the betrayals, he said quietly. They taught you to survive. Then he was gone. Nayela sat alone with the laptop, staring at her grandmother's final gift. A way out. A way to end this. She thought about everything that had happened over the past 2 weeks. The rain-soaked street where her old life had ended. The convenience store where a simple purchase had awakened an empire. The training that had turned softness into something sharper. The gala where she'd faced down her past. The factory where she'd almost died. The warehouse where she'd saved her mother. All of it leading to this moment, this choice. She typed in the access codes her grandmother had provided. The screen filled with warnings. Final protocol activation requires biometric confirmation. A camera activated on the laptop. It scanned her face, her eyes, the unique patterns that prove she was Amara Vale's granddaughter. Identity confirmed. Warning, this action cannot be undone. All vault contents will be permanently erased. Sanitized evidence will be released to authorities. Proceed. Nayela's finger hovered over the confirmation button. She thought about her grandmother sitting in some tropical location, watching all of this unfold. Wondered if Amara was proud or disappointed. Wondered if it mattered. Then she thought about the woman she'd been 2 weeks ago, broken, used, thrown away, and the woman she'd become, someone who could make impossible choices and live with the consequences. She pressed confirm. The laptop screen went dark. Then lines of code began scrolling past faster than she could read. Somewhere in Seoul's digital infrastructure, her grandmother's empire was dying. Files erasing themselves, backups corrupting, evidence packages compiling and sending to prosecutors across 3 countries. The process took 17 minutes. When it finished, a final message appeared. Protocol complete. Vault sealed permanently. Legacy ended. And beneath it, one last note from her grandmother. Well done, Nayela. You chose better than I did. Now go live the life I never could. The laptop shut down completely. Nayela sat in silence as dawn light filled the apartment. It was done. 40 years of secrets, destroyed in 17 minutes. Her phone buzzed. Message from an unknown number. Extraction team waiting on the roof. Time to disappear. Nayela stood slowly, her legs shaking with exhaustion and adrenaline crash. She gathered the few belongings she had, mostly weapons and false documents Taejin's people had provided. Took one last look at Seoul through the apartment window, the city where her grandmother had built an empire, where her marriage had ended, where she'd learned that survival meant becoming someone she barely recognized. She wondered if she'd ever see it again. Decided she probably wouldn't. That was safer for everyone. The roof access was guarded by 2 of Taejin's people. They nodded respectfully as she passed. A helicopter waited, rotors already spinning. Mira stood beside it, her head bandaged from the warehouse explosion. Thought you might want a familiar face for the first leg, she said. Nayela climbed into the helicopter. Mira followed. They lifted off smoothly, Seoul falling away beneath them. Where's Taejin? Nayela asked. Handling the fallout. Your protocol worked. Files are hitting prosecutors' desks across Korea, China, and Japan. It's going to be chaos for months. And him? He'll survive, Mira said. He always does. She pulled out an envelope and handed it to Nayela. He asked me to give you this. Inside was a passport, Canadian, with Nayela's photo but a different name. Maya Chen. Birth date adjusted by 2 years. Occupation listed as financial consultant. Also inside was a bank card. Access to a clean account, Mira explained. Enough to start over comfortably, not enough to draw attention. He didn't have to. Yes, he did, Mira interrupted, because despite everything, he cares about you. And in our world, caring means making sure someone has the resources to disappear properly. The helicopter flew over the Han River, catching morning light. What about my mother? Nayela asked. Already on a plane to Auckland. New Zealand has excellent privacy laws and no extradition treaties with the relevant countries. She'll be safe there. Will I ever see her again? Mira's expression softened slightly. That depends on how well you both stay hidden. Maybe in a few years, maybe never. Sometimes love means letting people go completely. Nayela leaned back against the seat, feeling the weight of everything finally settling onto her shoulders. She'd won, survived, escaped, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like standing in ruins after a war nobody really won. Does it get easier? She asked quietly. The guilt? All of it. Mira was quiet for a long moment. No, she said finally. But you get stronger. And eventually, strong enough to carry it becomes the same as easy enough to live with. They flew in silence until Seoul disappeared behind them. 3 months later, Maya Chen sat in a cafe in Vancouver's Gastown district, watching rain streak down the window. She'd cut her hair short, dyed it a shade lighter, wore glasses she didn't need and clothes that made her invisible in crowds. She worked remotely for a tech startup, analyzing financial data under a supervisor who'd never met her in person. She lived in a studio apartment with furniture from IKEA and art from thrift stores. She had exactly 3 friends, co-workers who knew nothing about her past beyond the carefully constructed backstory she'd memorized. She was nobody. It should have felt like freedom. Instead, it mostly felt lonely. Her phone buzzed, unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Maya Chen, her mother's voice, warm and familiar. Or should I say, Nayela? Mom, how did you... I'm your mother. Did you really think I wouldn't find a way to check on you? Nayela smiled despite herself. Are you safe? Very. Auckland is beautiful. You should visit sometime. Maybe I will. I know you will, her mother said, because you're not the kind of person who stays hidden forever. Eventually, you'll get restless. Want to build something again. I'm done building empires. I didn't say empires. I said something. There's a difference. Nayela watched rain blur the city outside her window. Do you ever regret it? She asked. Choosing to hide all those years ago? Her mother sighed. Every day. But I don't regret keeping you safe. And I don't regret that you became strong enough to make different choices than I did. Even if those choices destroyed grandmother's legacy? Especially then, her mother said firmly. Amara built something powerful, but power without conscience is just another kind of prison. You freed us from that. They talked for another 20 minutes about nothing important, weather, food, the small details of normal life. When they hung up, Nayela felt lighter somehow. She'd never see Taijin again. Would never know if he survived the investigations her protocol had triggered. Would never know if the choices she'd made had been right or just different flavors of wrong. But her mother was alive. Safe. Free to call her daughter from the other side of the world. And Nayela was alive too. Not as the woman who'd been thrown out in the rain, not as her grandmother's heir, but as someone new entirely. Someone who'd walked through fire and chosen to come out the other side carrying compassion instead of vengeance. That evening, Nayela sat in her small apartment and opened her laptop, not to access vault files or intelligence networks, just to write. She started documenting everything that had happened, not for publication, not for revenge, just to remember, to process, to transform pain into something that might help someone else someday. She wrote about betrayal and survival, about the difference between love and manipulation, about the cost of power and the price of freedom. about becoming dangerous enough to survive without becoming monstrous enough to deserve destruction. She wrote until her fingers ached and dawn light crept through her window. Then she saved the file, encrypted it, and tucked it away. Maybe someday she'd share it, or maybe it would just exist as proof that she'd lived through something impossible and come out the other side still capable of feeling. Either way, it was hers, her story, her truth, her legacy. Not built on secrets or fear or the broken pieces of other people's lives, but on the hard-won understanding that survival wasn't the same as victory, and victory wasn't the same as peace, and peace was something you built one quiet day at a time. 6 months after that, news broke across Asia. Massive corruption scandal rocks. Seoul's elite dozens arrested in international investigation. Mysterious evidence dump exposes decades of criminal activity. Nayela read the headlines from her Vancouver apartment and felt nothing. No satisfaction. No regret. Just the distant acknowledgement that somewhere in Seoul, her grandmother's final gift was changing the city she'd once ruled. Among the names listed in the arrests, she noticed several she recognized. Politicians who'd attended the gala, business leaders who'd courted her favor, judges who'd been in Amara's pocket. But Ryu Taejin's name was absent. Either he'd survived the purge, or he'd disappeared as completely as she had. Nayela hoped it was the latter, hoped he'd found his own Vancouver somewhere. His own quiet life built on the ruins of the old one. But she didn't search for him, didn't try to find out, because some doors, once closed, needed to stay that way. That night, Nayela dreamed about rain. Not the cold Seoul rain that had marked the end of her old life, but warm summer rain in a place she'd never been, washing clean everything that came before. She woke feeling lighter than she had in months, made coffee, watched the sunrise over Vancouver's skyline, and somewhere in the back of her mind she heard her grandmother's voice one last time. "Well done, granddaughter. Now go live." So she did. Not perfectly. Not without scars or doubts or moments when the weight of everything threatened to pull her under. But she lived, built a life that belonged to nobody but herself, made choices that served her values instead of her survival, became someone who could look in the mirror and recognize the woman staring back. And on nights when the rain hammered against her window and memory tried to drag her back to that street in Gangnam, she reminded herself of one simple truth. The woman who'd been thrown away like garbage no longer existed. In her place stood someone who'd inherited darkness and transformed it into the strength to walk away. Someone who'd learned that the most powerful thing you could do wasn't building an empire or destroying your enemies or claiming your birthright. It was choosing peace over power when the world gave you every reason to burn. That was her grandmother's real legacy, not the vault or the files or the empire, but the proof that a Vale woman could survive anything, even herself. And as rain drummed its ancient rhythm against glass and steel and everything that separated one life from another, Nayela smiled. Because she'd done what countless people thought impossible. She'd escaped, not just Seoul or her past or the men who'd tried to use her, but the gravitational pull of violence that consumed everyone who touched it. She'd chosen to be better than her circumstances, to build light instead of weaponizing darkness, to remember that survival meant more than simply staying alive. It meant staying human. And somewhere in a city on the other side of the world, in a place where lotus flowers bloomed in temple ponds and cherry blossoms fell like snow, the empire her grandmother had built finished dying quietly. Not with violence or vengeance, but with the simple truth that all empires eventually fall. And the people strong enough to survive them are the ones who learn to walk away before the collapse buries them too. Nayela walked away, and she never looked back. Because the woman abandoned in the rain had finally found something more valuable than revenge or power or the inheritance everyone thought she needed. She'd found herself. And that was enough.